Chapter 1813. She could accept the inheritance? One had to know that even a suitable inheritor needed a process and opportunity to understand and accept the inheritance. But Tang Yun completed the process as soon as she went to Snowy Valley. They didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse. As for Tang Yun giving the forgetful herb to Lin Yi, old Lin and Mo Kongwen were touched. It wasn't easy for this girl to go this far for her lover. If that's the case, then follow Tang Yun's wishes and keep this a secret forever. Don't let Lin Yi know about it. Old Lin shook his head lightly and sighed. Or else, it would be a waste of Tang Yun's effort. Both of them would be in extreme pain. Meng Yao and Yushu nodded after listening. Yes, Tang Yun didn't use the grass of forgetfulness. She would definitely be in extreme pain. And there was even a risk of qi deviation. If Lin Yi knew about this and saw Tang Yun who had a heart of ice, he would probably be in even more pain. The only way to get the best of both worlds was to never let Lin Yi know about this. It was a little unfair to both Tang Yun and Lin Yi, but there were some things that they had no other choice. After such a long delay, you guys should be starting school soon, right? Old Lin asked. Not really, we applied for East Ocean Industry University. The new students start school in October, Meng Yao said. Of course, it's another matter if we can't get in. That's good. Meng Yao said that. But old Lin naturally wouldn't worry about Meng Yao not getting in. Not to mention the fact that Meng Yao's grades were there for all to see. Even if she couldn't get in, with Pengzhan's power, she could still go to school. But it's about time. You guys should go back now, right? Yeah, other than bringing General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig away, we're also here to say goodbye to you. Meng Yao said, a little sad. Grandpa Lin, we'll definitely come back to visit you when we're free next holiday. It doesn't matter if you visit me or not. But when you're free, go visit Tang Yun behind Lin Yi's back. She'll be very happy, you guys. Old Lin said. Yes, I will. Meng Yao nodded. Alright, let's not talk too much. Rest here tonight and go on your way tomorrow. Old Lin said. Okay, we'll go say goodbye to Air Gooden. Also, Grandpa Lin, can you leave us your contact? Meng Yao said. Lin Yi had old Lin's number before, so she didn't record it down. If Lin Yi didn't wake up, she might have to trouble old Lin again. Old Lin said. It's in Lin Yi's phone. I'll go get it for you. Old Lin said. Lin Yi didn't bring his phone, nor did he turn it on. He left it in his room. This was the last night Meng Yao and Yushu would spend in West Star Village. It had been a long journey, but the two didn't feel too tired. They stood in the familiar courtyard, and it was as if they had returned to that night when they first arrived at West Star Village, when they were eavesdropping on Lin Yi and Tang Yun's whispers under the fence. The scenes from that time were right in front of their eyes, but so far away. Things were the same, but people weren't. Shu, let's go rest. We still have to get up early tomorrow. Meng Yao sighed and pulled Shu's hand into the room. Yao Yao sis, do we still have a chance to live with Tang Yun sis in the future? Yushu asked. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows what will happen in the future? Meng Yao suddenly smiled. You're asking me something you don't even know about, Prophet Shu? Prophet Shu isn't omnipotent. Yushu mumbled to herself as she followed Meng Yao back into the room. But, if Meng Yao and Yushu were more attentive, they would realize that they were the main characters tonight. And the eavesdroppers were old Lin and Mo Kongwen. You said that someone will be sacrificed. Tang Yun will be staying in Snowy Valley, right? Old Lin asked. Probably. Some things can't be predicted in detail, and this is the best ending. Mo Kongwen said. Old friend, it's time for you to leave, right? Old Lin asked. Yeah, it's time for me to go back now. Mo Kongwen said. You still haven't understood the practitioner's arts he left behind? Old Lin asked. It's not that easy. Mo Kongwen smiled bitterly. You know that the qi here is very thin. Other than Lin Yi's jade pendant, I didn't go to that place back then. It's so hard to break through. You're right. Let's work hard together. I need to take that step if I want to leave Star West Village. Old Lin sighed. The next morning, Meng Yao drove Yushu, Lin Yi, Weiwu, and Skybolt Pig out of Star West Village. She'd arrived in front of all the villagers, but Meng Yao kept a low profile when she left, avoiding the crowded areas and going on the road quietly. On the way, Mingyao wanted to contact her father and tell him that she and Shu were back, and that Pengzhan was out of danger as well. She wanted to let him know that she and Shu were back, and that Pengzhan was out of danger as well. Mingyao didn't think much of it when the call didn't go through, thinking that her father was in a meeting or in the underground parking lot. But it had been so many days, and Pengzhan's phone was still turned off when she called again, hours after that. Mingyao was starting to panic, and so she dialed Faubert's number, but it got through this time. "Miss Chu." Faubert picked up quickly, but his voice sounded a little low. "Is that you?" "It's me, Faubert." "What's wrong? Your voice sounds a little hoarse. Are you sick?" Mingyao paused but didn't mind. "Where's my dad? Why's his phone off?" "Mr. Chu." Faubert hesitated. He thought that Mingyao was alone, and it might affect her mood if he told her about Pengzhan's car accident. It'd be even worse if she got into trouble because of her impatience. And so Faubert said, "He's very busy these few days with that big project. Miss Chu, is there anything I can help you with?" Chapter 18:14. "I see." Mingyao didn't suspect anything. "Faubert, tell Dad that we're almost home. It's about a day's journey." Mingyao said. "All right, I understand, Miss Chu." At this point, Uncle Fu paused for a moment. "Give me a call when you're back." "All right, I got it." Mingyao hung up the phone, relieved as she continued her journey. After another day of driving, Mingyao finally saw the Songshan toll station sign. Both Mingyao and Yushu let out a sigh of relief as they exited the toll station. They were finally back. This trip to Star West Village wasn't as happy as they had imagined, but they experienced a lot of things. The two had matured quite a bit after this experience. "We're home. It feels so good," Yushu said sincerely. "Yeah, I'm finally home." Mingyao drove the car back to the Sea View Bay Villa area with ease, but the scene in the house shocked her the moment she opened the door. In the living room, there were several bags and luggage piled up in a mess. If it weren't for the familiar furniture, Mingyao would have thought that she had entered the wrong house. Yao Yao, did we get a burglar?" Yushu said, surprised. "Burglar? We have more things now, not less. What kind of burglar would put things in someone else's house?" Mingyao glared at Yushu with a bitter smile as she walked over and opened the bags and luggage. She was even more surprised after opening them. "Shu, look, aren't these your things?" "Yeah, these are my clothes." "Who moved them into the villa for me?" Yushu was curious. Weren't these things supposed to be in her villa? Why were they moved into Mingyao's villa? "Wait, let me ask Faubert." Mingyao took out her phone and called Faubert. "Miss Chu, you're back?" Faubert picked up quickly. "Yeah, Faubert, I'm back, but why is the villa so messy? It seems like all of Shu's things were moved in." Mingyao asked, confused. "Miss Chu, wait for me. I'll tell you when I get back." Faubert hesitated. Some things were better said in person. "Yeah, okay." Mingyao didn't realize at all that her family was about to be destroyed. Faubert didn't say anything else as he looked at Pengzhan's body covered in tubes and wires through the ICU window. His eyes reddened as he turned around and left. The car recorder proved that Pengzhan had committed suicide, and the driver wasn't responsible for the accident. The company that the driver worked for only gave Faubert a few tens of thousands of yuan as consolation money, and the rest of the medical expenses were naturally covered by Faubert himself. But now that Pengzhan Industries was in the hands of someone else, Pengzhan and Lin Yi's shares were all under in Mingyue's name. The small shareholders who used to follow Faubert around were now like a completely different person. Pengzhan had been hospitalized for a long time, and other than a few old business partners, who came to visit him with some consolation money, the small shareholders were all busy sucking up to the new chairman. No one came to visit Pengzhan at all. What surprised Faubert was that Guangbua, on the other hand, brought his son Xie Jinlong to the hospital with 200,000 yuan in one go. Faubert couldn't help but sigh at the fact that a shareholder, who was kicked out of the company, could do something like this. It was quite rare. Guangbo, on the other hand, had made it very clear that his son was saved by Lin Yi, and that was more than enough to offset any other grudges. This 200,000 yuan was also for Lin Yi's sake. Faubert, on the other hand, had saved up some money over the years. After all, he was following Peng Zhan, and he didn't have to pay for his living expenses himself. Other than the medicine he used, the rest of his salary was saved up. Guangbo's 200,000 yuan was enough to cover the surgery and medical expenses. But looking at the daily medical bills, Faubert didn't know what to do. The surgery fees were settled for now, but where was he going to pay for Peng Zhan's medical expenses in the future? Faubert didn't even want to spend money on public transportation. Right now, Faubert was trying his best to save every cent he had. After all, he had no source of income, and the more he spent, the less money he had. Fortunately, Faubert was a runner, and his walking speed wasn't tiring. He arrived at Meng Yao's villa in no time. But when Meng Yao opened the door, she was surprised to see Faubert walking in without a car. "Faubert, you didn't drive? Miss Chu, let's talk inside." Faubert smiled bitterly. Meng Yao was confused, but she still let Faubert into the villa. When the three of them sat down on the sofa, Faubert noticed that Lin Yi and Tang Yun were missing. He couldn't help but ask, "Where's Lin Yi and Tang Yun? They're not here?" Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other, a bitter smile on their faces. Meng Yao didn't want Uncle Fu and her father to worry, so she didn't tell them about Tang Yin staying in Snowy Valley. Now that they were home, however, Meng Yao didn't need to hide it anymore. She told Uncle Fu everything that had happened. "So you're saying that Lin Yi hasn't woken up yet? And Tang Yun is staying in Snowy Valley and can't come back?" Faubert looked at Meng Yao and Yushu stunned. He didn't know what to say. Originally, Faubert had placed all his hopes on Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi's medical skills were superb. As long as Peng Zhan's life was saved, Lin Yi should be able to cure him. He could see that Lin Yi was very good at healing his meridians and Wu Qintian and General Wei Wu's wounds. Plus, Lin Yi's social connections were very deep. He maintained good relationships with all the noble houses. Although Peng Zhan Industries was gone, with Lin Yi's connections, it wasn't impossible for them to make a comeback. So Faubert was very happy when he heard that Meng Yao was back, but now, not yet. But the people in Snowy Valley said that he should wake up in about a month. Meng Yao said, "Right, Faubert, what's with the things in this house? I think they were all moved from Shu's house." "A month? There's still a month." Faubert frowned deeply. Facing the huge expenses every day, Faubert was already struggling to make ends meet. Lin Yi still needed a month to wake up, and when he woke up, he might not even be able to recover his strength. Could Peng Zhan hold on until then? Chapter 1815. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem if he had the money to pay for the medical bills. But if he didn't, then Peng Zhan could only wait for death at home. "Faubert, what's wrong?" Meng Yao noticed Faubert's weird behavior. "I was talking about the things in this house." "Ah, you're talking about things." Faubert finally understood Meng Yao's question, but he sighed deeply. Yao, actually, something big happened at home." "Something big?" Meng Yao paused. "What happened?" "Mr. Chu. His investment failed, and he killed himself." Faubert knew what kind of blow this news would bring to Meng Yao, but he couldn't hide it from her. "What?" Meng Yao stood up abruptly, looking at Faubert in disbelief. "Faubert, what did you say? Dad killed himself?" "Mr. Chu's investment failed, and he committed suicide by crashing his car. Although he didn't die on the spot, he's still in the hospital's intensive care unit. He's still in critical condition." Uncle Fu nodded and said in a heavy voice, "I wanted to tell you about this earlier, but I was afraid you'd worry and get distracted while driving. So I waited for you to come back." "I'm sorry, Miss Chu." "Faubert, don't say that. Meng Yao was devastated, but she knew that Faubert was thinking for her sake. After going through Lin Yi's deviation and Tang Yin's staying in Snowy Valley, Meng Yao was a lot stronger and more mature than before. She was worried about her father's safety, but she endured the pain and asked, "Faubert, what happened? How did Dad lose his investment?" "I'll have to start from the deal with Housen," Faubert said as he told Meng Yao about Pengzhan and in Mingyue's deal. He said helplessly, "I tried to persuade Mr. Chu to stop while he was ahead, but it was like he was possessed. He insisted on mortgaging his property and shares, and he lost everything in the end. I'm really sorry, Miss Chu. Faubert, it's not your fault." Meng Yao's tears gushed out when she heard that her father crashed into a speeding car when he had nothing. But she didn't blame Faubert. She knew that Faubert never interfered with her father's investments. Even if Faubert tried to persuade her father this time, her father wouldn't listen to Faubert completely. "Miss Chu, Mr. Chu isn't out of danger yet, but there's still hope. My condolences, as long as there's life there's hope. When Lily wakes up, we might have a chance to make a comeback." Faubert's eyes flashed coldly. "We'll get back what we've lost. As long as there's hope." Meng Yao nodded, feeling a little better. But from the second half of Faubert's words, she could sense something else. "Faubert, are you suspecting something?" "Miss Chu, I don't have any proof, but Housen." Faubert's eyes flashed with anger again. "I'm afraid that Housen didn't have any good intentions from the start. It's just that I can't find anything wrong with them." "Are there any problems with the trading records?" Meng Yao asked. "There's nothing wrong with them, but the trading was done overseas, and the records were only provided by Mingyue. I can't find the original records." Faubert shook his head. "Don't tell me, it's possible to lose everything and lose everything?" Meng Yao was a little surprised. She didn't know much about futures, but she had seen stocks before. Even if a stock lost money, it shouldn't be a loss, right? They're using margin trading, so 100% loss is normal. There's no problem with that. Faubert said, "But I'm afraid that these trading records are fake, made up by someone." It seemed that no one was an idiot. Housen may have done it flawlessly, but Faubert still had his suspicions. Housen didn't care though. So what if they had suspicions? It was a foregone conclusion. "Housen." Meng Yao wiped away her tears, remembering the name. "Miss Chu, this villa doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to Housen, but Jiang Wen said that he's your friend, and he didn't want you to be homeless. That's why he fought with his father to keep the villa." Faubert said, "I don't know if Jiang Wen's part of it, or if he's being sincere, but it's best if you don't interact with them in the future." "I know." Meng Yao didn't expect that the villa wasn't hers anymore. She looked at the familiar scene and felt a little sad. "So Shu's stuff was moved here?" "Yes." Uncle Fu nodded and said, "By the way, Miss Chu." "Faubert, why are you still calling me Miss Chu? How am I a rich young miss? Just call me Yao Yao." Meng Yao was a little sad after what she'd gone through. "All right, Yao Yao. I don't have much money left, and Mr. Chu's medical fees haven't been settled yet. Can you take out the pocket money in your card and give it to me first?" Uncle Fu didn't bother with the details and asked directly. "Of course," Meng Yao said naturally, but her face changed slightly. "Wait. I don't have any money left." "You don't have any?" Faubert paused. "We were robbed on the way." With that, Meng Yao told Lin Yi about the dangerous scene on the road, and how Shu was able to turn the situation around with her quick wits. "Man, money is just a worldly thing. It's fine if it's gone, but right now, we don't have any money." Faubert, naturally, wouldn't blame Meng Yao. In that situation, he would have given her 5 or 10 million, let alone 1 million. "Maybe I should ask my brother how much money my family can take out? It's hard to say if it's a lot, but a few 100,000 should be possible." Yushu's family wasn't rich. Her parents were researchers, and her grandfather was retired. Her brother's salary wasn't that high either. Other than his own living expenses, there wasn't much they could save. No need to ask. House Chun and House Song's money was probably all lent to Fatty Lai. Faubert shook his head. He knew about the bankruptcy of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, If Fatty Lai still had money, Faubert would have gone to borrow it already. He wasn't familiar with him, but with his relationship with Lin Yi, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem was that Fatty Lai couldn't even protect himself now. Chapter 1816. Meng Yao and Yushu knew about Fatty Lai's situation as well, and they all fell silent at the thought of his situation. Holy Church, forget it, I'll think of something. You guys just came back, you should rest first. Faubert stood up. But how was he supposed to think of anything? He was just trying to comfort himself. Back when the sect was annexed, his master, wife and daughter were nowhere to be found. From then on, Faubert changed his name to Li Fu and followed Pengzhan. Other than Pengzhan, what other relationship did he have? I want to go to the hospital to see my dad, Meng Yao said. All right, let's go. Faubert nodded. After settling Lin Yi down, Meng Yao brought Yushu and Faubert out of the villa quietly. Meng Yao wanted to drive but Faubert stopped her. Yao Yao, don't drive, gas costs money. Save it for when you need it. Okay. Meng Yao let go of the car door apologetically and walked out of the villa with Faubert. Songshan's First People's Hospital. A delicate and pretty girl, with a somewhat haggard expression, was quietly standing outside a thick glass wall. She was looking inside the glass wall at a man lying on a white hospital bed. His body was full of tubes and wires, but his expression was very serene. Beside her was a middle-aged man and a voluptuous girl who was shorter than her by a head. Yao Yao, I just asked the doctor. If there are no accidents, Mr. Chu should be able to pass tonight. Faubert said. You don't have to worry too much. That's good. Meng Yao breathed out in relief. Faubert, thank you for taking care of him these days. What are you talking about? Mr. Chu and I are old friends. Faubert waved his hand. Let's leave, there's no point in standing here. Meng Yao said as she looked at her father, her heart aching a little as she looked at him. Why at this time? Why did things happen to the people closest to him? Her father, her best friend Tang Yun, and her male friend Lin Yi. It was as if they had all agreed to meet. Something happened at the same time. Misfortune never comes alone. Meng Yao had experienced it firsthand. Fortunately, everything was developing in a good direction. As long as his father could survive for a month and wait for Lin Yi to wake up, everything would be fine. Yes, everything will be fine. Meng Yao and Yushu went back to the villa, and Faubert went out to discuss the medical fees. Meng Yao and Yushu, on the other hand, didn't calm down at all. When they went home to check on Lin Yi, they suddenly remembered that Lin Yi needed money to buy medicine as well. The prescription Elder Zhang gave them didn't lack rare ingredients, and although they could be bought in a pharmacy, the price wasn't cheap at all. This wasn't a problem for the old Meng Yao, as she could just swipe her credit card. But now, her father's medical fees, Lin Yi's medical fees. What should she do with this money? Did she have to go back to the Snow Valley and ask Tang Yin for it? Shu looked at Meng Yao, who was holding the prescription with a stiff face. Naturally, she thought of this as well. Yao Yao sis, do you have no money to buy medicine for Shield Bro? Yes. Meng Yao nodded. She sat on the side of Lin Yi's bed in pain. She looked at Lin Yi's skinny face and sighed. I don't know how to contact Xiao Xiao. Maybe I can borrow some money from her. Yushu thought of her best partner. Sigh. At this moment, Meng Yao suddenly realized that she was the most useless one here. Without the Miss Halo, she couldn't even be compared to Tang Yun. Before, when Tang Yun was feeling inferior, she tried to comfort her. Now that she thought about it, it was a joke. At least Tang Yun knew how to make barbecue, but what about her? She didn't even know how to make money. Besides, Tang Yun had made the biggest sacrifice for Lin Yi. It could be said that Tang Yun's sacrifice was unparalleled. What about her? She thought about herself. She was still acting arrogant in front of her. Just thinking about it made her blush. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Meng Yao and Yushu were confused. Who would come at this time? Faubert just left. It shouldn't be Faubert coming back. But when Meng Yao arrived at the villa's entrance, She saw someone she didn't expect to see. It was Zhang Wen. Seeing him, Ming Yao's face darkened. Before, because of her father, although Ming Yao hated this person, she still pretended to be polite to him. But now, it was time for them to completely fall out. Zhang Wen, what are you doing here? Are you here to see a joke? Ming Yao was expressionless. She looked at Zhang Wen coldly. She had no intention of opening the door. Yao Yao, what are you talking about? Why would I want to see a joke? We were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. Uncle Chu is also my elder. I'm also very sad that something like this has happened. Zhang Wen said painfully. I heard that you came back, so I came here to see you. You're spying on me? Ming Yao asked coldly. Ugh. Zhang Wen's face turned awkward. It's not that I'm spying on you, but the property of your villa belongs to House N's company now. This place hasn't been taken back yet, because I tried my best to get my father to fight for it in front of uncle and grandpa. But now that you're back, the management company will naturally call us. Then shouldn't I thank you? Ming Yao humphed lightly, as if she didn't care about Zhang Wen's words. Yao Yao, I know that you might be dissatisfied with Housen's decision, but what I want to say is that Housen is also a victim in this matter. Zhang Wen smiled bitterly. You're a victim too? Acting pitiful? Ming Yao naturally didn't believe Zhang Wen. Yao Yao, let me in. I'll tell you the details. I'm here to clarify things with you. It's not good for people to see me standing at the door like this. Zhang Wen said. Let you in. Ming Yao wanted to say let you in. Are you dreaming? Why should I let you in? But then she remembered that this villa didn't belong to her anymore. Zhang Wen was the real owner, and she was living under someone else's roof. At that thought, Ming Yao sighed helplessly. She opened the door. Then come in. I'd like to see what you have to explain. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1817. Indeed, Zhang Wen was right. Peng Zhan was the one who asked for more investments, and Mingyue was the one who tried to talk him out of it. Ming Yao was even more certain that Mingyue didn't want to lend the money, telling Peng Zhan to stop. But it was her father's stubborn insistence that Mingyue had no choice but to agree to Peng Zhan's request. After that, it was Peng Zhan's request to withdraw his investments, and Mingyue had warned him about the risks involved. But Peng Zhan still insisted on withdrawing his investments. This made Ming Yao a little sad. Thinking about how her father was doing this for her, she couldn't hold back her tears. These recordings were enough to prove House N's innocence, and it was only now that Ming Yao believed that it was an accident. After all, she couldn't really say anything in front of evidence like this. Even if House N really did play some tricks, it was Peng Zhan's own fault. She tried to talk him out of it so many times, but he still wouldn't listen. Who could he blame for losing the money? Yao Yao, this time, do you understand our and family's pain? Zhang Wen smiled bitterly. Actually, we didn't get anything out of this at all. We basically used this money to buy these shares and properties. Can you send me the recordings of these phone calls? Ming Yao took a deep breath. Faubert didn't know about this, and Housen didn't explain much to Faubert. St. Hall, as far as Zhang Wen was concerned, he had to explain it to Ming Yao personally for this to work. He had other things to do, after all, and this was just a prelude to get close to Ming Yao. Of course. Zhang Wen nodded. But here's a video of the signing, you can have a look. With that, Zhang Wen opened the video of Peng Zhan and Mingyue signing the contract. Of course, the video was edited, and there were some things Ming Yao shouldn't have seen. Ming Yao looked at her father's happy face after getting the money, and she knew that her father had done this out of his own volition. This meant that Housen really didn't have much to do with it. Of course, Ming Yao had forgotten about the hypnotist as well. But who would have thought that there was a hypnotist involved in this? Moreover, even an ordinary hypnotist would find it hard to do such a flawless job. Of course, a hypnotist from the Firewolf gang was a different story. The Firewolves were all experts in the study of the human body's potential and limits. Hypnosis was also a way to stimulate the human body's potential. If Mingyao had been thinking from a normal perspective, she wouldn't have suspected a hypnotist at all. All right, I believe you. This matter has nothing to do with you. Mingyao was a straightforward person, and she had no reason to suspect House, and in front of all this evidence. It's fine. If people don't know the truth, they'll really suspect us. Zhang Wen smiled bitterly. I'll send it to your phone now. Mingyao nodded. I understand, it's not your fault. It's Daddy's fault for being too impatient. Is there anything else you need? Here's 100,000. I heard that Uncle Chu really needs money right now, so I took out half of my private stash and gave it to you. Zhang Wen said as he took out the 100,000. He was a little apologetic. Because of what happened before, my father's position in the company has been temporarily revoked, so my pocket money has been reduced a lot. This is all I can give you. Mingyao really wanted the money, but she didn't want to owe Zhang Wen anything. She wouldn't have cared about 100,000 in the past, but now she really wanted it. She didn't want to owe Zhang Wen a favor, just because of 100,000, and that was something she didn't want to owe Zhang Wen a favor. Oh, give it to me. Yushu took the money from Zhang Wen's hand and said, I'll take it. It was Zhang Wen's turn to feel helpless. He took out the 100,000 to get on Mingyao's good side. He didn't want Mingyao to feel like he owed her, but at the very least, he wanted her to think that he was treating her well. But it was different now that Yushu took the money. He didn't need Yushu to owe him anything. He just wanted to get as far away from this bad girl as possible. But since Yushu had taken the money, he couldn't take it back. Not only would he lose face, but it would also make Mingyao feel like he wasn't giving her the money with sincerity. It wasn't worth it. And so Zhang Wen said without hesitation, It doesn't matter who I give it to, it's for Uncle Chu. It's a token of my sincerity. Thanks. Mingyao felt a little better now that she didn't have to take the money herself. Right, Yao Yao, the amusement park belongs to us now. But Uncle is planning on developing the land around the amusement park. Are you interested in joining in? Zhang Wen finally revealed his main purpose for coming here. What do you mean? Mingyao frowned. The amusement park belongs to your family now. What does it have to do with me? Uncle's planning on building a safari park near the amusement park. After all, it's surrounded by mountains and rivers. It's a beautiful environment, and Songshan lacks a big zoo. So Uncle's planning on training me and putting me in charge of this project. Zhang Wen said, Yao Yao, I'd like to invite you to join in the development. Me? What for? Mingyao still didn't understand what Zhang Wen was planning. Yao Yao, actually, I feel really bad seeing Uncle Chu like this. These properties belong to us now, but I think it's just temporary. As long as I work hard, I'll definitely get them back for you. Zhang Wen said. Get them back for me? Mingyao looked at Zhang Wen surprised. Was there something wrong with this guy? Yeah, if I perform well, then I'm sure Grandpa will agree to it. But the prerequisite is that you have to be with me. If you marry me, then it'll be perfectly justifiable for me to help you get these properties back. After all, you're my wife, and these properties belong to House Chu. Even if Uncle objects, Grandpa will definitely agree. Zhang Wen said proudly. In the third generation, Grandpa likes me the most. Chapter 1818. In actuality, it was true that Olden liked Zhang Wen, but it was also because Zhang Wen was the most capable one, and his position in the Firewolves had been rising. Olden, on the other hand, was an outer disciple of the Firewolves. His dream back then was to enter the core of the Firewolves and become a core disciple. One had to know that core disciples of the Firewolves could become practitioners, and Zhang Wen, if he did a few more things, the Firewolves would probably give him foundation building pills to help him train. Marry you? Mingyao smiled. She finally understood what Jiang Wen's goal was. He wanted her to marry him, and as for developing an amusement park, it was just a way to build up their relationship. As long as their relationship was built up, everything else would be fine. Mengyao smiled. She finally understood what Jiang Wen was trying to say, but Mengyao didn't like Jiang Wen at all. Even when the temptation was right in front of her, Mengyao didn't move. She didn't know why, but there was a belief in her heart. If Linny woke up, then everything would be fine. Even if she lost a lot, as long as Linny was there, then she could make a comeback. Yeah, you know that even if I'm loved by Grandpa, if you weren't my girlfriend, Grandpa wouldn't agree to me returning all these properties to you. Jiang Wen opened his hands and smiled bitterly. Yao Yao, you might think that I'm taking advantage of you, but this is the only way I can think of. Besides, I really like you. I'm sorry. I still need to go to school. I'm not interested in this theme park. Mengyao shook her head, rejecting Jiang Wen's suggestion. Sigh, in any case, I'm just saying. You should think about it. After all, I don't want you to lose House Chu's properties. I heard that it was your grandpa's hard work. Jiang Wen said. Thank you, but I'm not thinking about marriage or work right now. I still need to go to college. Mengyao said. All right, I won't disturb you then. Give me a call when you've thought it through. Jiang Wen said. Wait, you said you want to build a zoo? Yushu asked suddenly. Yes, Xiao Shu. You also helped me to persuade Yao Yao. After all, we all want to help her. Jiang Wen nodded. Although he didn't like Shu, she was the closest person to Mengyao. Mengyao would listen to her if she tried to persuade her. Are you guys buying a lot of animals? Yushu asked. Of course, how can there be no animals in a zoo? Jiang Wen didn't know why Yushu was asking this, but he answered honestly. That's good. I have a lion here. I'll sell it to you. It doesn't have to be too expensive. Just 200,000 or 300,000 will do. Yushu demanded. Ah. Jiang Wen paused, not knowing what to say. It's better to make a cooked one than a raw one. We're already so familiar with each other. And Yao Yao needs money. You won't reject it, will you? Yushu asked. Ugh. I'll buy it, of course. 300,000, right? All right, I'll talk to Uncle about it. I'll definitely buy it. Jiang Wen was troubled. His cooperation with Mengyao didn't work out, and he got a lion for nothing. Jiang Wen had heard that Yushu got a lion from Xiao family's Gohuli, but he didn't think that he'd be the one to buy it. More importantly, the zoo was a project he came up with on a whim. The goal was to get in touch with Mengyao. If Mengyao didn't participate, why would he even bother with the zoo? He didn't have the time to do that. There were more profitable projects waiting for him. That's great. I'll get someone to send the lion to you later. Yushu said. Jiang Wen left Mengyao's house troubled. He felt helpless. Nothing good ever happened to Yushu. This girl always found trouble for him. What the hell? Mengyao couldn't help but smile at Shu's actions, but she didn't stop her. One was willing to get hit, and the other was willing to suffer. With Shu here, other than Lin Yi, she'd take advantage of everyone else. Jiang Wen was asking for it. Shu, do you think that Dad's incident really has nothing to do with Jiang Wen? Mengyao said helplessly as she looked at the evidence on her phone. Who knows? This guy might not even be telling the truth. Yushu doesn't have a good impression of Jiang Wen. But there's evidence. Mengyao said. That's true. But we'll have to wait until Uncle Chu wakes up. Yushu said. Hidden House Yu. Yu Bing's letter had arrived. If it were any other disciple of the Ice Palace, they wouldn't be able to enjoy this kind of treatment. But Yu Bing could write a letter to his family once a month, and he could even receive letters from House Yu through the Ice Palace. The other outer sect disciples had to be in the sect for at least a year before they could enjoy the privilege of writing letters to their families. But Yu Bing had the care of the future sect master of the Ice Palace. Not only did he receive more elixirs than the other outer sect disciples, but he also had more privileges than the other outer sect disciples. But even so, no outer disciple dared to object. Who told him to be so close to the future sect master of the Ice Palace? This time, Yu Xiaoqin's letter gave Yu Bing quite a shock. Xiaoqin questioned Yu Bing in the letter. Why did he hide the fact that Lin Yi participated in the tomb robbery? and that he got the qi-gathering pill. Yu Bing, on the other hand, thought that his father knew everything when he saw the letter. He quickly explained everything, admitting that he knew that Lin Yi had participated in the tomb raiding, and that he had a qi-gathering pill with him. But he couldn't be loyal at the same time, and he couldn't betray his friend, so he hid it from his father. In truth, Yu Bing's explanation was because he thought that his father knew everything. He didn't know that it was all a coincidence. Yu Xiaochen didn't know the truth of the matter, and only heard Yu Huasheng's side of the story. That was why he wrote such a vague letter to Yu Bing. He didn't want to expose himself, so naturally he didn't say too much. He only asked a few general questions, but Yu Bing had a guilty conscience, and so this was the result. If Yu Huasheng knew about this misunderstanding, he'd probably be laughing so hard that he wouldn't be able to close his mouth. He'd just randomly made up a lie to frame Lin Yi, and now Yu Bing was telling the truth. Even the heavens were helping him. Chapter 18-19. Looking at the letter in his hands, Xiaochen's face darkened even more. After confirming Yu Huasheng's words, Xiaochen immediately went to the mountain where the old Yu was in isolation. Under Yu Yi's lead, Xiaochen once again met the old Yu. St. Hall Father, Yu Bing's reply is here. Xiaochen didn't waste time with pleasantries and went straight to the point. Oh, what did Yu Bing say in the letter? Old ancestor Yu opened his eyes and asked. Yu Huasheng didn't lie. Lin Yi did participate in the tomb raiding, and he did have the qi-gathering pill. Xiaochen said as he handed the letter to the old Yu. The old Yu took the letter and read it quietly, as if he was very serious. Xiaochen didn't want to disturb him, so he stood to the side and waited for the old Yu to finish reading. It was obvious that the old Yu liked Yu Bing a lot, otherwise he wouldn't be reading the letter so seriously. After a while, the old Yu put down the letter in his hands and sighed. I wanted the other hidden houses to break the rules and send out their Earth class. But I didn't think that the first to make a move would be us, House Yu. Father, you're preparing to make a move on Lin Yi? Xiaochen was happy as he asked. St. Hall, if his father supported him, then they might be able to get the qi-gathering pill back, and he would have a high chance of breaking through to Sky class. Of course, he didn't think that Lin Yi had already eaten the qi-gathering pill, as it would only have the greatest effect when an Earth-class late-phase peak was breaking through to Sky class. Taking it before was a waste of a heavenly gift. If you become a Sky class as well, then House Yu will have nothing to worry about for the next 100 years. The old Yu said, this is your hope, so of course I'll give it my all. Since we've confirmed that it was Lin Yi who took the pill, then let's fulfill Yu Huasheng's wish. Kill Lin Yi and get the pill back. Kill Lin Yi? Xiaochen raised an eyebrow. Yu Bing. Sooner or later, he will understand that the interests of the family are greater than anything else. Elder Yu said, this time we'll let Yu Lu go. Although it's said that Lin Yi went crazy, we don't know if it's true or not. Yu Lu is an Earth-class mid-phase peak. Even if Lin Yi is faking it, he can still beat Lin Yi. Yes. Xiaochen nodded. Then I'll go arrange it right away. And go talk to Yu Huasheng. You know what to say, right? Old ancestor Yu said. Of course. Yu Xiaochen said. I'll make sure that Yu Huasheng remembers this favor after helping House Yu get their revenge. Count this as repayment for House Zhao stealing his qi-gathering pill. Alright, off you go. Old ancestor Yu waved his hand. After Xiaochen left the old ancestor's training grounds, he sent for Yu Huasheng. Greetings, head Yu. Yu Huasheng said respectfully. He didn't know why Yu Xiaochen was looking for him all of a sudden, but he wasn't afraid. Ever since he was told to pretend that the Zhaos had taken the qi-gathering pill, he knew that everything would be fine. No one would pursue this matter anymore. Even if someone did pursue this matter, Yu Huasheng would be able to push all the blame away. Huasheng, Yu Bing has sent a letter confirming your story. Lin Yi did participate in the grave robbing, and he was the one who stole the qi-gathering pill. Xiaochen said. Ah. Yu Huixing paused. Had Yu Bing lost his mind? What the hell did Lin Yi participate in the grave robbing? Plus, the qi-gathering pill wasn't stolen by Lin Yi. He was the one who gave it to House Zhao. Why did Yu Bing admit to his story? Before, Yu Huixing was relieved, but he was afraid that something would happen to Yu Bing. If Yu Bing had clarified things, then House Yu would definitely believe Yu Bing's words, not Yu Huixing's. So Yu Huixing was hoping that Yu Bing wouldn't be able to write letters in the Ice Palace. But he didn't think that Yu Bing would actually reply to him. What was even more unexpected was that Yu Bing actually confirmed his story. Was Yu Bing out of his mind? But despite his doubts, Yu Huixing was still very happy. No matter what reason Yu Bing had, confirming this was beneficial to him. After a moment of shock, Yu Huixing quickly said, "That's how it is, that Lin Yi is extremely despicable. Not only did he destroy our common house Yu, he even stole the qi-gathering pill that belonged to you, Head Yu. What a heinous crime." That's right. This Lin Yi is indeed despicable. So after my father and I talked about it many times, he finally agreed to send people to avenge your common house Yu. Xiaochen said, knowing how to buy people's hearts. Thank you, Head Yu and Elder Yu. Yu Huixing's heart was filled with gratitude. The common house Yu basically only existed in name now. Yu Huixing was filled with hatred. But after hearing that Lin Yi had become an earth class, he didn't have the courage to take revenge anymore. If the hidden house Yu didn't help, then unless he became a higher class master, he wouldn't be able to do anything to Lin Yi at all. Plus, he was someone who was especially afraid of death. Before he completely suppressed Lin Yi's strength, he wouldn't do anything rash. You're welcome, this is what we should be doing. The common house Yu may not have a successor, but you can support a few other relatives. I heard that Yu Haitian isn't bad. Let him and Yu Kun take care of House Yu together, Xiaochen said. But House Yu will just be doing business from now on. Don't participate in training anymore. Yes, Yu Huixing sighed heavily. If the common house Yu stopped training, then what difference was there between them and normal businesses? This meant that the common house Yu would be completely marginalized from now on. They wouldn't have the glory they had before. But this was the best solution. At least the hidden house Yu would still support House Yu. Otherwise, it was hard to say if House Yu could survive. Without a practitioner, any house with a practitioner could step on them. This time, I'm going to let Yu Lu go find Lin Yi for revenge. Is there anything else you want to say? Xiaochen asked. Nothing. It's all up to you, Head Yu. Yu Huixing wanted to say that he wanted to take revenge himself, to kill Lin Yi with his own hands. But in the end he didn't have the courage to say it, because he was afraid of dying. He was afraid that Lin Yi was faking it. Even if Yu Lu, an Earth-class mid-phase peak, went with him, he was afraid that Yu Lu wouldn't be able to protect him. And so, Yu Huixing gave up when it came down to it. Chapter 1820. Xiaochen naturally didn't say anything. He told Yu Huixing to leave and went to find Yu Lu. Yu Lu, I'll give you a mission this time. Yes, House Head Yu, please instruct me. Yu Lu was a direct descendant of House Yu, and he was extremely loyal to House Yu. He was a brainwashed loyalty. Whatever Xiaochen told him to do, he'd do it. Heart. Go to Songshan and help me get rid of someone, then get the qi-gathering pill back from him. Xiaochen said. Yes. Yu Lu didn't even think about it. Please tell me, House Head. This person's name is Lin Yi. I'm sure you've heard of him. Here's his information and address. When you get there, just deal with him directly. As for the people around him, Xiaochen paused before continuing seriously. Don't touch the people around him, especially the two girls with him. Don't hurt them. Every debt has its debtor. And we House Yu can't be too domineering. We just need to find trouble with Lin Yi. I understand. Yu Lu nodded. In actuality, Xiaochen didn't need to explain so much. There was no doubt about Yu Lu's loyalty. Whatever Xiaochen said, he'd do it, unlike Yu Huixing, who still had some ulterior motives. Holy Hall, alright, you can go now, Xiaochen said to Yu Lu after giving his orders. Yu Lu, on the other hand, disappeared in a flash. An Earth-class mid-phase peak was extremely fast. Later that night, Yu Tian and Lingshan came to visit Meng Yao, Yushu, and Lin Yi. Yu Tian got the news from Yushu, so he came to the villa. As for the news of Lin Yi's deviation, he got it from another source. Meng Yao and Yushu weren't as hostile towards Lingshan as they were before. They knew the results of the Noble House meeting, and Lingshan was now on Lin Yi's side. While the vixen liked Lin Yi, she was still a mystic late-phase peak. While Lin Yi was unconscious, she could be a helper, protecting Lin Yi. Brother Fox Song. Yushu opened the door. Shu, don't say that, call her Lingshan sis. Yu Tian scolded. Still not Lingshan sis, she wants to be Shield Bro's wife. I'm just a small wife, but she's at least 6 or 7. You should call me Shu sis. Yushu said. Heart. Lingshan, don't mind her. Shu's just like that. Yu Tian didn't know if he should be laughing or crying at Shu's behavior. It's fine. I'll follow the rules when I come in. Lingshan looked at Yushu and said faintly, but I don't think Lin Yi has ever acknowledged you as a small wife, right? What's wrong with calling you Shu sis when he does? Yu Tian smiled bitterly at Lingshan's words. He didn't expect Lingshan to be so sharp with her words. Alright Lingshan, Shu, stop arguing. Boss Lin Yi hasn't woken up yet. Who's going to be the small wife? Yu Tian said. Yes, Shu, stop arguing. Yun Yin has already entrusted Lin Yi to us. What's there to argue about? Meng Yao was talking about Shu, but she was also telling Lingshan about their relationship with Lin Yi. Lingshan smiled and didn't say anything. Bro, do you want to see Shield Bro? Yushu asked. That's second. I'm here to remind you guys not to stay in the villa. You guys should move out and find a more secluded place to stay. Yu Tian said. According to our experience, if the news of boss going crazy gets out, his enemies might come for revenge. It's too dangerous for the two of you to stay here alone. Ah, Meng Yao couldn't help but gasp. She had forgotten about this before. And now that Yu Tian reminded her, she suddenly remembered the time when Lin Yi was injured and fainted, and the noble houses came to him at the same time. She still had lingering fear when she thought about the situation at that time. Lin Yi had woken up at the critical moment. But what about now? It was impossible for Lin Yi to wake up now. And if more enemies came to their door, there was only one way. According to the information I received, at least the hidden house Pai behind Xiao family, and the hidden house you behind house you won't let this go easily. So you guys better leave here as soon as possible. If these two houses send masters, Yu Tian bro, and I won't be able to fight them even if we work together. Lingshan said. Thanks for the reminder. We'll pack up now. Meng Yao nodded decisively after listening. She didn't have the slightest bit of nostalgia for this huge villa. Since it wasn't hers anymore, what was the point of living here? When Lin Yi woke up, she could buy a bigger villa. Meng Yao had always been confident in Lin Yi, but she didn't know where this confidence came from. Was it just because of Lin Yi's tall figure during the bank robbery? We'll help you. We'll only pack the important things, the things that are meaningful to you guys. Leave the other furniture and appliances here, Yu Tian said. Okay. Meng Yao nodded and started packing with Yushu, Yu Tian, and Lingshan. An hour later, Meng Yao and Yushu were panting as they tossed a couple of bags onto the car in the yard. These were all the useful stuff they packed, including a change of clothes and underwear, and a laptop with some photos and other important documents on it. The other computers had all been erased from the computer. Lin Yi didn't have many things. Other than a few tattered clothes in his room, there were the clothes Meng Yao bought for him. Meng Yao packed these clothes together with some unknown things in Lin Yi's drawer. Finally done. Meng Yao breathed out in relief. She looked at the things that couldn't be taken away, and shook her head. Goodbye, villa. From the moment she stepped out of the villa, she might never come back again. But, just when Meng Yao and Yushu put Lin Yi in the car and were about to leave, something unexpected happened. An uninvited guest came to the villa's doorstep. And even with Yutian and Lingshan's strength, they couldn't tell how this person got here. It was as if he just appeared out of thin air, without any warning. Chapter 1821. Stalling for time. Who's Lin Yi? The person asked directly. Get him out here. Who are you? What are you doing here? Yutian was shocked as he barked at the person. This person gave him a sense of danger, and his instincts told him that this person was very strong. Lingshan was shocked as well. She and Yutian had guessed that after the news of Lin Yi's deviation, someone would come looking for trouble with Lin Yi. But she didn't think that someone would come so soon. She wasn't sure of the person's identity, but it looked like he was definitely here to cause trouble. Otherwise, he wouldn't have asked for Lin Yi's whereabouts right away. I'm Yu Lu, under orders from the head of the Hidden House Yu to find Lin Yi and avenge the Common House Yu. I don't want to kill innocent people. Get Lin Yi out here. With Yu Lu's status and strength, naturally, he wouldn't hide who he was. He wasn't afraid that someone close to Lin Yi would go to the Hidden House Yu for revenge. In the Hidden House Yu, there were 2 sky-class masters overseeing the place. If he dared to go there for revenge, he would be courting death. Lingshan and Yutian looked at each other, understanding what was going on. It was the Hidden House Yu after all. They didn't expect them to come this fast. Lin Yi's deviation, and he hasn't come back. Don't you know? Lingshan said. Qi deviation? Yu Lu said coldly. Maybe it's true, but he hasn't come back. I don't believe it. Who's in the car? Yu Lu was a very loyal person trained by House Yu, but that didn't mean he was an idiot. On the contrary, Yu Lu's training had trained him to be very meticulous. He could tell at first glance that these people were moving. As for why they were moving, it was obvious. They probably knew that their enemies would come looking for trouble, and so they wanted to leave first. Yu Lu locked his eyes on the car in the yard. Lingshan and Yutian looked at each other and yelled, Yao Yao Shu run! We'll handle this. With that, Lingshan and Yutian charged at Yu Lu, one on the left and one on the right. Meng Yao and Yushu were very nervous in the car, not expecting something like this to happen right before they left. Someone came looking for trouble, and they didn't know what to do. They were afraid that this person would do something to Lin Yi, but Yutian and Lingshan yelled. Meng Yao subconsciously started the car, stepped on the gas, and the car shot out of the villa like an arrow, speeding away. Yu Lu's eyes darkened. He didn't think that 2 late-phase peak mystic juniors would dare to attack him first. He could have easily dealt with Lingshan and Yutian, but Yu Lu hesitated as he remembered Yu Xiaoqin's orders before he left, to target Lin Yi and not hurt the innocent. Although Yu Xiaoqin was talking about the 2 girls beside Lin Yi, Yu Lu didn't know if he was talking about these 2 as well. He didn't know why Xiaoqin wanted him to target Lin Yi, but he didn't question it. He carried it out. And because of that, he hesitated, not knowing how to deal with Lingshan and Yutian. And it was this moment of hesitation that gave Meng Yao the chance to drive away. Otherwise, with Yu Lu's skills, it would be a piece of cake for him to stop Meng Yao and Yushu. Move, or I won't go easy on you, Yu Lu warned faintly. Meng Yao and Yushu had left, but Yu Lu was confident that he could catch up to them in a short amount of time. After all, there were only a few roads in the villa area, and with his speed, he would be able to find them. In order to make these 2 retreat, Yu Lu channeled his practitioner's arts as well, and in an instant, his Earth-class mid-phase peak was on full display. His chi pressed down on Lingshan and Yutian. Lingshan and Yutian's faces changed. They knew their opponent's strength now. It was an Earth-class mid-phase peak. If they were facing someone who'd just entered Earth-class early phase, Lingshan and Yutian would have a chance if they worked together. But this was an Earth-class mid-phase peak. They had no chance at all. They weren't Lin Yi, and they didn't have the ability to fight someone stronger than them. Facing someone this much stronger than them, there was only one possibility: defeat. I'm a police. You're trespassing on private property. Come back with me for investigation, Lingshan said. Rain 6 paused. He'd thought that these two would be suppressed by his aura and retreat, or maybe they'd come at him without a care for their lives. But he didn't think that Lingshan would say something like this. Trespassing? Yulu scratched his head, but didn't do anything. He explained, I'm from a hidden house. I understand. I'll notify the investigation department, Lingshan said. Yulu was about to say that he was from a hidden house, and that he was bound by the association. But when he saw the cunning look in Lingshan's eyes, he understood immediately. This person was trying to stall for time, giving the other side a chance to escape. With that thought, Yulu didn't bother with Lingshan anymore. He turned around, wanting to chase after Yushu and Mengyao. Lingshan and Yutian understood immediately that Yulu understood. Lingshan's words did stall for time, but they couldn't guarantee that Yushu and Mengyao wouldn't be able to escape. They stood in front of Yulu, not letting him leave. Move, or I won't go easy on you, Yulu said coldly. Two Mystic late phase peak, are you guys tired of living? At this point, Yulu had guessed that these two were from noble houses as well. He didn't know which noble house they were from, but they were definitely with Lin Yi. Yulu was raging inwardly. These two Mystic juniors were messing up his plans, and he wanted to kill them immediately. But remembering what Xiaochen had told him, he didn't do it. After all, he didn't understand what Xiaochen meant. Xiaochen's words were very vague, and Yulu didn't know if Xiaochen only wanted the two girls with Lin Yi to be harmed, or did he want everyone else to be harmed? After all, Xiaochen had added that house you had a debtor, and he couldn't be too domineering. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1822. Us two juniors are untalented. We'd like to experience your strength. Yutian forced himself to speak to Yulu. Yulu frowned. He didn't expect these two to be so persistent. A wave of frustration rose in his heart as he pushed his palms out, one on the left and one on the right. It seemed like he was pushing them out randomly, hitting Lingshan and Yutian on the left and right. An Earth-class mid-phase peak and a Mystic late-phase peak were worlds apart. They couldn't be compared at all, especially with Yulu's skills. He could kill Yutian and Lingshan with ease. But Yu Xiaochen's warning made Yulu cautious. He used his skills. He didn't use his full strength, only sending Lingshan and Yutian flying. They wouldn't be heavily injured, but some light injuries were unavoidable. Lingshan and Yutian's bodies flew out, one on the left and one on the right. Both of them felt sorrow. They couldn't even take a single hit from Yulu. They didn't even see how Yulu did it, and they were already flying out. This meant that the difference in strength between the two was just too huge. Yutian and Lingshan's thoughts of risking their lives was a joke. If Yulu wanted to kill them, they'd be dead already. But be it Yutian or Lingshan, they didn't know why Yulu would go easy on them. Looking at how aggressive he was when he came for Lin Yi, he didn't look like a merciful person at all. Did he? But this was a question that would never be answered. After sending Lingshan and Yutian flying, Yulu disappeared into the night, chasing after Yushu and Mengyao. At this moment, Mengyao's jeep was parked quietly under an overpass. Mengyao, on the other hand, was carrying a huge pile of bags, waiting quietly under an overpass. Yushu was carrying Lin Yi on her back. The two of them ran with all their might in the dark night. The two knew that Yulu would definitely chase after them, so Mengyao abandoned the car. They changed to walking, although it was harder. But at least they wouldn't expose themselves easily. Phew, Mengyao was already out of breath. She didn't know where the energy came from, but she had 2 bags in her hands. He did not feel tired at all. Yushu, on the other hand, ran as fast as she could with Lin Yi on her back. In a dangerous situation, a person's potential was limitless. However, the potential of these two people was obviously stronger than that of a normal person. Sky Thunder Pig and General Weiwu, on the other hand, each carried more than 3 bags, but they ran very fast as well. This bit of weight seemed to be nothing to them. It was just that there was a limit to how much space they could carry on their bodies. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem to hand over the 2 bags in Mingyao's hands and choose Lin Yi. Yao Yao, how much longer do we have to run? I'm running out of energy. Yushu and Lin Yi had been running ever since they got off the overpass, and they'd already run 1,000 meters. Find a secluded place, at least one of those back alleys. Mingyao said. Your shield bro is dead meat if he gets caught. Oh, then Shu's full of energy again. Yushu gritted her teeth. Mingyao was a little speechless. This Shu, the moment she mentioned that Lin Yi was in danger, she'd go all out in her little universe. In front of them was an old building district. This was one of the earliest buildings in Songshan, but it was also the most dilapidated one. The buildings here were all decades old, and most of them were 3-story red brick houses. Because of the problems with the planning, they didn't consider things like roads, so there were only alleys between the buildings, and the alleys were all enclosed by the residents on the first floor, turning it into their own yard. Dirty, messy, and broken. This was Mingyao and Yushu's first impression. If it weren't for this escape, they wouldn't have come to a place like this no matter what. Perhaps they wouldn't come here for the rest of their lives, but Mingyao purposely chose this place today. First, there were more obstacles here. The boxes were narrow, and the front of the yard was filled with junk. It was easy to find a hiding spot. Second, cars couldn't enter this place, and the 2 left in their car. If Yulu didn't see them hiding in the parking lot under the overpass, he wouldn't have thought that they were in an alley like this. Let's rest for a bit, Mingyao said to Yushu, who was panting heavily. She really couldn't walk anymore. Okay. Yushu might have gone all out, but she was exhausted as well. Naturally, she agreed with Mingyao's suggestion. The 2 found a pile of junk in front of a house and hid behind it carefully. Yulu chased after them, walking on the rooftops and telephone poles. He could see the streets below, and as an Earth-class mid-phase peak, it was a piece of cake for him. Yulu was furious. If it weren't for Yutian and Lingshan, he would have caught up to Mingyao and Yushu long ago. But now, he could only rely on his instincts to search the area. Finally, Yulu's eyes landed on the parking lot under the overpass. There weren't many cars in the parking lot at night, and if he looked carefully, he would be able to find Mingyao's jeep easily. The next moment, Yulu appeared beside the jeep. He touched the car's hood, a cold smile on his face. He leaped up again, jumping onto the overpass. A driver who was passing by suddenly saw someone appear on the bridgehead. He almost got into an accident, thinking that he'd seen a ghost. Yulu was observing the surrounding terrain. Since Mingyao and Yushu had abandoned the car and walked, Yulu was thinking, which path would he choose if he were in their shoes? Finally, Yulu's eyes landed on an area of old buildings not too far away from the overpass. He could see what was going on in the other streets and neighborhoods, but that area of old buildings was built in a complicated manner. The tallest one was a 3-story building, and there wasn't a single place where he could get a good view of the entire area. This was the place. Rain 6 set his sights on this area of old buildings. If there was someone following him, then Rain 6 would have chosen this area as well, since there were too many places to hide and adapt to the situation. A small alleyway was all it took to lose his pursuer. After making up his mind, Yulu walked quickly towards the old building area. Chapter 1823. Yao Yao, that Yulu won't come after us, will he? Yushu had a bad feeling about this, as if Yulu could come after them. I don't know. Mingyao looked at the closed doors of the houses, thinking how great it would be if they could hide in one of the houses. But she didn't know them, and even if they told her to hide in one of the houses, Mingyao wouldn't dare do it. After all, they weren't familiar with the place, and who knew if they had bad intentions in the distance. a series of footsteps could be heard. It was especially clear in the empty alleyway, and Meng Yao and Yushu's hearts jumped. At that moment, the hairs on the two's backs stood up. They were wondering if Yulu had followed them here. The footsteps were getting nearer and nearer, and Meng Yao and Yushu subconsciously shrunk back. They were hiding behind a pile of junk, but if someone were to pass by, they'd still notice their silhouettes. Just as the person was about to pass by, the sound of coughing could be heard. It was the sound of an old woman coughing. Clearly, it was also the sound of the person who had come. Cough, cough. The cough made Meng Yao and Yushu relax. Thank goodness it wasn't Yulu. Not long after, a short old lady pushed a cart and slowly walked over. However, the old lady walked very slowly. Her eyes seemed to be sizing up the ground as she walked. She was a scavenger, and her cart was filled with broken cardboard boxes, bottles, and scrap metal. She looked around to see if there were any discarded bottles. When she passed by Meng Yao and Yushu, she saw the two curled up behind a pile of junk. The old lady's eyes flashed when she saw the two girls hiding there. She didn't know what they were doing here, but she subconsciously looked at them a few more times. Then, a look of disbelief appeared in the old lady's eyes. Fairies, you're the fairies. The old lady stopped in her tracks and cried out to Meng Yao and Yushu. Meng Yao and Yushu listened to the old lady's words. They froze for a second, but in the next moment, they recognized the old lady. She was the old lady who picked up scraps at the back door of Tiandi Entertainment. She was humiliated by Zhen Ingjun, and Linny transferred her disease to Zhen Ingjun. At that time, the old lady's chronic illness was suddenly cured. Naturally, she thought that Meng Yao and Yushu were fairies. After all, only fairies could do that, right? No matter how good a doctor was, he could only cure her illness. However, they could transfer their pain to the young man who bullied them. Only immortals could do this. With that, the old lady put down the car and was about to kneel down to greet Meng Yao and Yushu. Being able to meet a goddess once was already a blessing for her ancestors. One could imagine how excited the old lady was to be able to meet a fairy for the second time. Granny, we're not fairies. Meng Yao subconsciously stopped the old woman from kneeling down. After all, they couldn't accept the old woman's kowtow. You must be fairies. If you're not fairies, how can you cure this old lady's chronic illness? And how can you transfer the disease to that evil man? Did you transfer it to that evil person? Asked the granny. Meng Yao didn't know how Linny did it, and so she couldn't explain it. If it weren't for the fact that Linny had so many miraculous abilities, she would have been surprised if it was the first time she saw something like this. Two fairies. If you don't mind, you can come to my house. I want to donate all my savings over the years as incense money to you, said the old lady. You're not willing to accept this old lady's kowtow from me, but if you don't mind, you can come to my house. She was a grateful old woman, and she'd been scavenging for a living all these years. Her disability made it hard for her to move around, and the things she could scavenge every day were limited. But now that her legs were more agile, her income had increased greatly. She could now go to places she couldn't go before. And it was only natural that she was grateful to Meng Yao and Yushu. Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other. The two weren't greedy for the old lady's incense money, but they were worried about finding a place to hide. Since the old lady invited them, and it was someone they knew, they weren't afraid of someone with ulterior motives. It was exactly what Meng Yao and Yushu wanted. Sure, Granny, but we're not fairies. We'll tell you in detail when we get to your house. Meng Yao could see that the old lady was a kind person. She wouldn't pretend to be a fairy to trick her. Okay, that's great. The old lady couldn't stop smiling when she heard Meng Yao and Yushu's agreement. In fact, it didn't matter if Meng Yao and Yushu were fairies or not. The important thing was that the old lady had met her benefactors again. Being able to repay them was what made the old lady the happiest. Meng Yao lifted the bag, and Yushu carried Linny on her back. The old lady paused when she saw this scene. Fairies, let me help you carry this. How can I let you do manual labor? Granny, it's fine. But before Meng Yao could finish, the old lady took the bag from her hands easily and put it on the cart. Lin Yi, who was on Yushu's back, was also carried by the old lady. The scene stunned Mengyao and Yushu. They didn't expect this skinny old lady to be so strong. The old lady smiled when she saw the shock. I used to carry a sack on the streets when my legs weren't as good as before. What heavy things haven't I carried before? Now that my legs are healed, this is nothing. Mengyao and Yushu calmed down after hearing the old lady's words. They walked forward with the old lady. The old lady, on the other hand, saw Skybolt Pig and General Weiwu on the ground. She blinked and rubbed her eyes. She was sure that Mengyao and Yushu were fairies. In her entire life, she had never seen a pig that could walk on two legs, and a dog that could carry things like this. If she wasn't a fairy, how could there be such a spiritual beast in the celestial world? Wasn't this something that only happened in the journey to the west? However, since she didn't want to admit it, the old granny didn't insist. Perhaps she was a fairy who had descended to the mortal world and wanted to keep it a secret. The old grandma's house wasn't far from here, and it was also on the first floor. The old grandma opened the door and let Yushu and Mengyao in first, before closing the door behind them. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for me at Chidian. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 1824. This is my house, and it's a bit messy. Please don't mind. The old lady said. St. Hall. Grandma, we really aren't fairies. Besides, it's good enough that we have a place to stay. Mengyao smiled bitterly. She didn't know why, but the old lady was so sure that they were fairies. With that, the old lady opened the door, and the group entered the house. The yard was messy, with all sorts of junk everywhere, but the house was clean and tidy. The old lady lived in an old house with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. There wasn't much decoration, and there wasn't any good furniture either. Even so, the house was clean and spotless. It was obvious that the old lady was a hard-working person. Please have a seat, fairies. I'll make you some tea. The old lady placed Lin Yi on the sofa carefully. She didn't know what happened to Lin Yi, but she didn't dare ask if the 2 fairies didn't want to talk about it. The old lady recognized Lin Yi as the man who was with the 2 fairies at the back door of Tiandi Entertainment. Don't bother, Grandma, we really aren't fairies. Not only that, we have a favor to ask. Mengyao quickly stopped the old lady from making tea. St. Hall. Not long after the 3 entered the yard, a figure appeared at the entrance of the alley. It was Yulu. Yulu's eyes looked coldly at the empty alleyway. He flew up to the top of a 3-story building, looking down at the alleyway, but he didn't see anything out of place. This was the innermost alleyway. He'd searched the other alleyways, but Mengyao and the others weren't there. He'd thought that Mengyao and Yushu would be hiding here, but they weren't there. Could it be that they really weren't here? Or did they think that I would definitely follow them to this alley when I saw them abandoning their car? So, they deliberately didn't go here and chose the main street, where it would be easier for them to be exposed? Yulu's face darkened at the thought. He felt that he'd underestimated Mengyao and Yushu. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. Why hadn't he thought of that? Of course, Yulu didn't think that Mengyao would know any friends or relatives in this old building district. After all, judging from the villa district they lived in, it was impossible for them to have any interaction with the people living here. St. Hall. Yulu sighed softly as he left the area, returning to the jeep under the overpass, trying to figure out the escape route Mengyao and Yushu might have taken. Even if he found the right route, he might not be able to catch up to them. It had been a long time after all, and Yushu might have found a hotel and settled down by now. But no matter what, Yulu had to give it a try. Mengyao wanted to find a place to stay, so she didn't hide anything. She told the old grandma about her, Yushu and Lin Yi being followed. She also explained that she and Yushu weren't fairies, but Lin Yi was a great doctor. He could cure her and create similar symptoms for Zheningjun at the same time. The old grandma didn't think twice about Mingyao's request to stay here for a while. She was a lonely old lady, and Mingyao's arrival wouldn't bring her any inconvenience. Plus, the old grandma wanted to repay Mingyao and Yushu, so she wouldn't reject them. Although you say that you are not fairies, from what this old woman has seen for dozens of years, even if you are not fairies, you are still extraordinary people. Being able to let you live here is the good fortune that this old woman has accumulated in her previous life. This old woman is truly very happy. The old woman said, "Thank you, Grandma." Mingyao and Yushu finally let out a sigh of relief. They'd planned to find a more secluded hotel to stay in, but even if they could use Ling Yi's name to register, Yulu wouldn't be able to find them. After all, the three of them were too obvious, and two girls with an unconscious boy. He'd be able to find them easily if he went to any hotel and asked around. As long as Lin Yi stayed in the house and didn't come out, who would pay attention to an old lady who picked up scraps? No need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. I can't thank you enough for letting me enjoy the life of a normal person before I die, the old lady said. By the way, you said that the young miracle-working doctor was in a coma because of illness. He must need to buy medicine. I don't have much savings in my life, but I'll give it all to you. It's a token of my gratitude to the young miracle-working doctor for treating me. Mingyao and Yushu were in need of money, but they didn't want to take the old grandma's money. Take this, the old woman said as she took out a bank book, handing it to Mingyao and Yushu. I've been an old woman for my whole life. My husband and kids are gone. I don't really need money. Mingyao was shocked when she saw the number on the bank book. There was 100,000. She didn't think that a lonely old grandma could get so much money by scavenging. Maybe I'll lend it to you, and I'll return it to you later. Mingyao thought about her father's situation and Lin Yi's situation. She accepted the bank book with a thick face. She needed money right now, and although Jiang Wen had sent over a sum of money, it wasn't enough to cover her father's medical expenses. Plus, Lin Yi's medical expenses weren't there yet. Haha, it doesn't matter if you return it or not. But you said someone was following you. Why didn't you call the police? The old grandma asked curiously. Mingyao didn't know how to explain. That person is very strong, and he's already a practitioner. Do you know what practitioners are? Practitioners? The old lady's eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light, but she quickly returned to normal, as if she was reminiscing. After a while, she shook her head and said, I think I've heard of it before, but it's been too long, so I can't remember. Mingyao nodded, not minding too much. After all, normal people didn't know much about practitioners. Even if they did hear about it, it was just a rumor. The only people who could see it with their own eyes were the bodyguards of big bosses. Chapter 1825. It was naturally impossible for an old lady who scavenged for scraps to know anything about cultivators. They're very powerful people, similar to the martial arts masters of the ancient times. Mingyao smiled bitterly. These people's kung fu is very high, and they appear and disappear unpredictably. I understand now. So you've offended a martial arts master? The old lady nodded. Then we'll settle down here first. I'm just a scavenger, and no one will notice me. It's very safe here. Mingyao nodded. Grandma, we'll go scavenge with you tomorrow. Mingyao had decided that she had to do something. The money she had, along with the old lady's 100,000, was only enough to pay for her father's medical fees for a short period of time. If Lin Yi didn't wake up by then, she would have to continue paying for his medical fees to keep him alive. Although the hospital couldn't wake her father up, Lin Yi must have a way. She had to hold on until Lin Yi woke up, and she couldn't give up on treatment. Chapter 1840. Where would the money come from? Mingyao had been thinking about this problem. She had thought about finding a place to work, but after you lose tracking, she knew that it was impossible. At least, she couldn't show her face in public. Scavenging with the old lady was Mingyao's only choice. No one would have thought that the high and mighty miss of Pengzhan Industries would become a little girl who scavenged for scraps. Even Mingyao herself didn't think that there would be a day where she would do this, let alone Yu Lu and the others. But from the moment Tang Yun made her decision and returned to the villa, Mingyao's mind had changed. Miss, without her father's halo, she was nothing. She couldn't even be compared to Tang Yun. So she didn't have any mental barriers following the old lady. She could rely on her own hands for Lin Yi and her father. There was nothing to be embarrassed about. There's no need. Just stay at home. I can handle it myself. I don't need to say much. I'll pay for the little miracle doctor's medical expenses every day. The old lady said with a smile. I've been picking up trash for decades. I'm experienced. Sanctuary. Grandma, the more people, the more we earn. Mingyao said firmly. That's fine, but you two girls with delicate skin should wear masks. Otherwise, if someone sees you, they will be suspicious. The old lady hesitated for a moment and said, Mingyao realized, to her surprise, that the old granny was actually very meticulous. She could think of details that even they couldn't. What kind of herbs do you need? I'll get them for you tonight. The old lady asked. Takitara, the recipe is here. Mingyao wanted to say that she wanted to go with the old grandma, but she was afraid of bumping into Yu Lu. After all, Yu Lu would be wandering around the area looking for them. Mingyao said, Grandma, let General Weiwu go with you. He can protect you. It's already so late. I'm worried about you being alone. Haha, this old woman is also very famous in this area. Who would rob a ragpicker like me? The old lady smiled faintly, but seeing Mingyao's insistence, she nodded and said, All right, I'll go with him. The General Weiwu you're talking about, is it this dog? Yes, General Weiwu. You go with Grandma to buy the medicine. Protect Grandma's safety, understand? Mingyao ordered General Weiwu. Woof woof. General Weiwu nodded, indicating that it understood. On the other hand, the old lady was a little surprised when she saw General Weiwu. Such a smart dog surprised her. Although she saw that the dog was carrying a lot of baggage, she didn't pay much attention to it. Many animals were stronger than humans, but now that she looked at General Weiwu, she couldn't help but let out a ha. She was full of surprise. What's wrong? Mingyao asked curiously. It's nothing, this dog is really smart. The old lady shook her head and said kindly to General Weiwu, Let's go, follow me to buy the medicine. Woof woof. General Weiwu immediately followed the old lady out of the room. After the old lady left the room, Mingyao sighed deeply. Shoo, we're really lucky to have met the old lady. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have a place to stay. Yeah, Prophet Shu is really amazing. She asked Shield Bro to do a good deed. And now she's getting rewarded. Yushu nodded. Puffed. Mingyao was speechless. If her prophecy had come true, then it would have been reasonable. But what happened today was just a coincidence. This girl really knew how to take credit for something. Naturally, Yu Lu wouldn't be interested in an old lady who brought a dog out to buy medicine. He looked around and didn't see Mingyao and Yushu, so he went to Yu Shaochen to ask for forgiveness. Because of a small mistake, he'd missed a good opportunity, and he was filled with regret. But after listening to Yu Lu's explanation, Shaochen didn't blame him. He only had himself to blame for not making things clear before, causing Yu Lu to be afraid. Shaochen wasn't someone who didn't know what was good and bad, so he only asked Yu Lu to go to Lin Yi's villa and see if he could find anything. If he couldn't, then he'd give up for now. If Mingyao really wanted to hide, then Yu Lu alone wouldn't be able to find any clues. There was no need for him to waste his time. House Chu's villa. Lingshan and Yutian had left a long time ago. The two were only lightly injured, and even they didn't know why Yu Lu was merciful. But no matter what, they were still alive. Mingyao and Yushu were gone, and they wouldn't stay in the villa for long. If Yu Lu came back, they wouldn't be a match for him. Without Mingyao and Yushu, they'd be idiots to fight Yu Lu head-on. And so, when Yu Lu returned to the villa, there was no one there. Yu Lu started searching from the first floor, until he turned the villa upside down. He didn't find anything valuable. After finding nothing, Yulu left Songshan quietly and returned to the hidden house. Under the dim light, Mengyao carefully sat in front of the stove, looking at the medicine in the pot. She'd followed Elder Zhang's instructions strictly, but what made her heart ache was that the medicine Lin Yi used cost more than 1,000 kwai. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1826. With Difficulty Walking, Part 2. This was only the price of the first prescription. The second prescription hadn't been filled yet, but the old lady had shown it to the owner of the pharmacy, and the price was even higher. Of course, this amount of money wasn't much to Mengyao and Yushu in the past, but it was a huge amount now. Mengyao was going to use the money she had to send to Faubert tomorrow for her father's medical fees, and it might not even be enough. Lin Yi's medical fees, on the other hand, would have to rely on scavenging every day. Not only that, but she also had to save up some money for Faubert. Mengyao felt a headache coming on as she thought about how to make ends meet. She'd never had to worry about money before, but this was the first time she'd experienced the pain of not having enough money. Yao, even if Shield Bro wakes up in a month, we'd have to pick up at least 5,000 kwai worth of trash every day just to survive. Yushu said as she calculated the daily expenditure. Lin Yi's medical fees and Pengzhan's medical fees were a huge sum. 5,000. Mengyao smiled bitterly. How was that even possible? Scavenging wasn't like picking up gold. How were they supposed to scavenge 5,000 yuan a day? Yushu shut her mouth after saying that. Luckily, the two had brought some jewelry with them when they left. They didn't like to wear jewelry normally, but they would still wear jewelry in formal occasions. It wasn't much, but they could still sell it for some money. It was just that it wouldn't be much, since the two didn't have any expensive jewelry. They only had normal stuff. The next morning, Mengyao and Yushu changed into ragged outfits. They didn't think too much about it when they left, and only took their best clothes. Going scavenging in these clothes would definitely attract attention, and they'd take a photo and post it on the internet. They'd be labeled as the most beautiful scavenger girl. And it'd be too late for Yushu and Yushu to cry. They'd be waiting for Yulu to find clues. Yushu's body was about the same size as the old grandma's, and she could fit into the old grandma's old clothes, but Mengyao couldn't. Left with no choice, she found the most ordinary-looking clothes she had and made them very wrinkled and dirty. That way, the original value of the clothes couldn't be seen anymore. And it looked like something bought from the streets for a long time. Something that hadn't been taken care of in a long time. The two of them looked at each other's sloppy appearance, and couldn't help but smile bitterly at the same time. They never thought that they would be in such dire straits one day. It was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but hard to go from extravagance to frugality. But in their hearts, this was nothing compared to what Tang Yun had done for Lin Yi. It was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but hard to go from extravagance to frugality. But in their hearts, for Lin Yi, this kind of hardship was nothing compared to what Tang Yun had done. Thinking about how Tang Yun was willing to endure the torment of love for Lin Yi, Mengyao and Yushu felt that at least they could stay by Lin Yi's side. Wasn't this a kind of happiness? Faubert only heard about the changes in the villa from Lingshan and Yutian the next day. When he heard that Mengyao and Yushu had run away, he didn't know if Yulu had caught up to them, and he started to panic. Beside the ICU, Faubert subconsciously wanted to call Mengyao after hearing Lingshan's words. Don't bother. We've already called them yesterday. Both of them turned off their phones. Lingshan smiled bitterly. Turned off? Did Yulu catch them? Faubert asked, shocked. There are two possibilities. One is that they turned off their phones to avoid Yulu's pursuit. After all, GPS isn't complicated, and if House Yu really wanted to, they could find them through their phone numbers. Lingshan said, the other possibility is that Yulu caught them and turned off their phones, but that's less likely, since Yulu is looking for Lin Yi, not Mengyao and Yushu. There's no point in catching them. So my analysis is that they've successfully escaped Yulu's pursuit. Otherwise, if Yulu really did catch them and make a move on Lin Yi, they'd contact us for sure. Yes, I can tell that Yulu's target is Lin Yi. He doesn't even have the intention to hurt the people around Lin Yi. He gave me and Lingshan a slap each yesterday, but we only got light injuries, and we're almost healed in one night. Yutian agreed. That's good. Faubert breathed out in relief. But just as the three finished talking, Faubert's phone rang. Faubert took it out and saw that it was an unfamiliar landline. Faubert's heart sank as he picked up the phone. Hello? Hello. Faubert, it's Yao Yao. Give me your bank account number. I have 200,000 with me. I'll transfer it to you to pay for Dad's medical fees. Don't stop the treatment. Meng Yao said worriedly. She didn't use her or Shu's phone. They had the same problem as Lingshan. If Yulu wanted to, he'd definitely be able to track their phones. So Meng Yao found a random public phone. The 200,000 included Jiang Wen's 100,000 and the old grandma's 100,000. As for the lion, Meng Yao didn't dare contact Jiang Wen again, so she had to let it go for now. 200,000? Faubert was a little surprised at how Meng Yao got so much money, but he was more worried about them and Lin Yi's safety. Yao Yao, how are you and Yi? I heard that House Yu's Yulu is after you? Yeah, we've successfully escaped. He didn't notice us. Meng Yao said, we're safe now. Tell me your bank account number. Shu and I will try to earn as much money as we can. As long as you're fine. Faubert breathed out in relief. Since Meng Yao didn't want to tell him where they were, Faubert didn't want to ask. After all, he was afraid that he'd be found out if he knew too much. It was better not to know. My bank account number is. With that, Faubert gave her his bank account number. All right, I'll remember it. I'll leave Dad to you, Meng Yao said after writing it down. Then you guys be careful. Faubert said. I know, Faubert. I won't contact you for a while. I'll transfer the money to you when I get it, Meng Yao said. As long as we hold on until Lin Yi wakes up, everything will be fine. I understand. Faubert nodded, relieved. Yao Yao, don't worry. I'll take care of Mr. Chu. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1827. Meng Yao and Yushu blushed when they heard Grandma Sun's words. They used to throw their old clothes away, and they often forgot to take out the change inside. But they didn't feel bad about it. Grandma Sun's words seemed to be mocking their old lifestyles. Meng Yao and Yushu knew that Grandma Sun didn't mean it that way, but they couldn't help but think of their old lives. In the past, they thought that they were already very frugal compared to those second-generation rich people. But now they realized that they were still very extravagant. Of course, if they were the ones in the villa Grandma Sun was talking about, they would probably make the same choice. 3,000 was a small amount to them in the past. If a kind person picked it up and gave it back, they would naturally think that the person was a good person and give it to him. But now that was then and this was now. Of course, these are all things that we can't ask for. Our main source of income is still these bottles and paper. Grandma Sun didn't notice the unnatural expressions on Meng Yao and Yushu's faces. Oh, we'll continue scavenging. Yushu blushed. Shuamin's house. Holy Hall. There were a few people sitting here. They weren't familiar with each other, but they were all related to Shuamin and Lin Yi, so they gathered together. These people were Shuamin, Fatty Lai, Wu Chintian, Sun Jingyi, Lingshan and Yutian. Lingshan and Yutian told Guan Shuamin, Fatty Lai, and the others about Lin Yi's predicament, hoping that they could think of a solution. But Yulu was from a hidden house, and none of the people here could go against a hidden house. Man, I wanted to talk to Dean Qin and ask him to waive Pingzhan's medical fees, but Xiang refused. Shuamin said with a bitter smile. Guan Xiaoxiang had already fought with Guan Shuamin because of the bankruptcy of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Guan Xiaoxiang reminded Guan Shuamin not to be cheated, but in the end, all of Guan Shuamin's money went into Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. But it still couldn't save the company from bankruptcy. Once the capital chain of a rapidly developing pharmaceutical company was broken, it would be like a building that would collapse in an instant. There would be no room for recovery. That was why Guan Xiaoxiang took it to heart. When he was young, he wanted to use Xu Amin's name to start a pharmaceutical company, but he was never allowed to do so. This time, he was naturally unhappy with those related to Lin Yi. Holy Church, Pengzhan's medical fees were of course official business. Not a single cent could be deducted. This time, everyone came to Xu Amin's house to discuss Pengzhan's medical fees. After all, when Fatty Lai's company was in crisis, these people basically took out their personal savings. Now they didn't have any money to take out. Man, if I hadn't sold my company earlier, I wouldn't be in such a tight spot right now. Sun Jingyi sighed. House Sun had tacitly approved Sun Jingyi's freedom of love, so Sun Jingyi sold her company and returned to House Sunday. Now, Lin Yi was in trouble. An elder son froze Sun Jingyi's account, leaving Sun Jingyi with no money to use. Wu Qintian's old man, Wu Gonggao, was even more snobbish, and Qintian became penniless as well. As for House Song and House Chun, they didn't have any businesses, and their salaries couldn't afford Pengzhan's huge medical fees at all. It's all my fault. If I wasn't in a hurry to expand the factory, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Fatty Lai said, heartbroken. Forget it, this isn't the time to blame someone. Xu Amin sighed. If it comes down to it, I'll put down my pride and talk to Dean Qin. I don't need to deduct the medical fees, but can we postpone it for a while? As long as Lin Yi recovers, everything will be fine. Yeah, when boss recovers, we'll take back what we lost. Fatty Lai nodded. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. Although they had General Wei Wu's help, the three's daily income was only around 500 to 1,000. There weren't many problems, and Lin Yi's medical fees were completely supported by the money that Grandma Sun didn't have time to deposit in the bank. But seeing that the money was dwindling day by day, Meng Yao and Yushu were very worried. If this continued, there would be a day when they wouldn't be able to hold on until Lin Yi woke up. If it comes down to it, let's get Skybolt Pig to join the operation tomorrow, Meng Yao said. Skybolt Pig was currently staying with Lin Yi at home every day. Since Skybolt's body was too unique, Meng Yao didn't want to attract people's attention if she brought him out. But there was no other choice now. Skybolt Pig. Yushu suddenly had an idea. Skybolt Pig can look for treasures, right? Then can he look for trash? Yeah. Meng Yao blinked at Yushu's words, but then said happily, how did I forget that? Skybolt Pig can look for treasures, so he can look for treasures in trash too, right? Skybolt Pig, come here. Yushu waved at Skybolt Pig. Skybolt Pig seemed to have heard the conversation between Meng Yao and Yushu, and he walked over unwillingly. Can you find something valuable in the trash? Don't say no, Yushu said to Skybolt Pig. Skybolt Pig was speechless. What was the point of asking if he couldn't say no? He could only nod, feeling wronged. All right then, pretend to be a dog tomorrow. I'll give you some furry clothes, and you'll help us look for treasures, Yushu said. Pretend to be a dog. Skybolt Pig shook his head at that. He was different from humans, and he was used to not wearing clothes. Wouldn't he die of heat if he wore furry clothes all of a sudden? I'm telling you, if you don't help us look for treasures, Shield Bro won't wake up, and no one will help you level up. You'll just have to fend for yourself, Yushu threatened. Skybolt Pig wasn't scared at all, and he nodded quickly after hearing Yushu's words. He'll pretend to be a dog then. I'll depend on your performance tomorrow. Yushu nodded, satisfied. In fact, Meng Yao and Yushu didn't have much hope before Skybolt Pig joined the scavenger hunt. Chapter 1828. This little thing had a keen sense of smell when it came to heavenly treasures, but it was hard to say when it came to trash. Holy Church, however, if the Skybolt Pig really found a treasure of heaven and earth, wouldn't he be able to sell it for a lot of money? It was better than nothing. It was always good to try his luck. The next day, Mengyao, Yushu, and Grandma Sun brought General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig with them. Grandma Sun already knew the best route every day, so she followed the same route almost every day. But today, after walking for a while, the Skybolt Pig pointed in a direction with its paw and squeaked. Oh! Mengyao hesitated, but decided to listen to the pig. Grandma Sun, let's go in that direction. Alright. Grandma Sun didn't understand why Mengyao would trust this piglet, but it was obviously different from normal pigs, so Grandma Sun decided to trust it for once. Following Skybolt Pig, the three of them and General Weiwu chased him all the way to a trash can in a residential area. Skybolt Pig pointed at the trash can with his claws and squeaked again. What's your name? If there's anything good, go pick it out. Yushu barked at Skybolt Pig. Holy Church Gigi. The Skybolt Pig looked at the dirty trash can and felt wronged. It was an ancient spiritual beast, and had never been treated like this before. But when he thought of saving Lin Yi, he could only walk towards the trash can unwillingly. Let this old woman do it for you. Grandma Sun didn't mind. Rummaging through trash was a common thing for her. There was no psychological barrier at all. With that, Grandma Sun began to rummage through the trash can. Soon, she found a few drink bottles and a few waste paper boxes from the trash can. However, these gains could only be regarded as ordinary. Such gains could be found in any trash can in any community. It was obviously not worth it to run so far for it. However, the trash can was almost empty. All the obvious things had been found by Grandma Sunday. There was probably nothing more valuable. Haha, let's just look for it step by step in the future. Grandma Sun put the cardboard boxes and bottles on the trolley and was about to leave, but the Skybolt Pig pointed at the trash can and continued to squeak. Yushu was a little pissed off at Skybolt Pig and was just about to yell at it when she heard the pig barking. Skybolt Pig, are you saying that there's more good stuff in here? Yushu asked after a pause. Skybolt Pig, are you saying that there's something good in here? Gigi. The Skybolt Pig nodded affirmatively. Takitra Grandma Sun was surprised to see a piglet that could understand human language. However, since it said that there were more, Grandma Sun believed it this time. She carefully rummaged through the trash can again. This time, she was more careful than the last time. Her eyes were no longer focused on the drink bottles and paper shells. Finally, at the bottom of the bin, Grandma Sun found an iPhone. Although the screen of the iPhone was obviously damaged, Grandma Sun tested it and found that the phone could still be turned on. In other words, the owner of the phone might have thrown it away after the screen was damaged and didn't bother to repair it. Grandma Sun picked up junk every day, and naturally, she had a lot of experience. It was common for her to find broken phones like this, and this iPhone only had a broken screen. If the other functions were normal, she could sell it to a second-hand phone shop for at least 1,000. This reward made Grandma Sun overjoyed. She didn't expect this little pig to have such abilities. The reward of this broken phone was equivalent to 2 days of her usual income. Can this broken phone be sold for money? Mengyao looked at the excited Grandma Sun strangely and asked. Of course, this is the latest model. It's just the broken screen, and the other functions should be fine. If you sell it to a second-hand shop, you can sell it for at least 1,000. Grandma Sun said. Mengyao's face turned red. This was the first time she knew that a broken phone like this could be sold for money. She would throw it away when there was a problem with her phone in the past. She would never think of selling it. Not bad, Skybolt Pig. Yushu looked at Skybolt Pig with praise. Continue. If you can earn more money every day, Shield Bro will wake up soon, and I'll ask him to help you level up. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig heard Yushu's words and nodded happily. After leaving the place, the three didn't return to their previous location. Instead, they started to pick up scraps on the streets of the district. This time, it didn't take long before Skybolt Pig pointed at a direction and barked again. This time Grandma Sun was experienced. Without Mengyao and Yushu saying anything, she pushed the cart and followed Skybolt Pig. She was afraid that if she was one step late, the good things would be taken by others. Skybolt Pig led the way, and after a few turns, they came to another residential area. There was a family moving, and beside the moving company's car, there was an old refrigerator and some old furniture. Skybolt Pig pointed at the old refrigerator and the old furniture and barked. "Excuse me, do you not want these things anymore?" Grandma's son hesitated and walked to the moving company's car. She asked the person who was obviously the employer. "Nope, I bought a new house. This thing is old, and it's not very useful anymore. If you want it, I'll give it to you." The employer waved his hand casually and said to Grandma Sunday, the refrigerator wasn't very old, and it looked like it could still be used. The furniture that was thrown away was a copper bedside table, some angle iron, and wooden boards. This kind of copper bed was not popular anymore. The employer probably got rich and bought a new house, and these old things that affected the style of the house were definitely not going to be used anymore. "Thank you very much," Grandma's son said, and moved the refrigerator and the copper bedside table to the cart. According to Grandma's son's experience, this refrigerator could be sold for at least $300 to $500, and the copper bedside table could be sold for a few hundred just by selling it as scrap copper. These two things added up to almost 1,000. The moving company workers looked at Grandma's son with envy. Obviously, they wanted to get these old things back from the employer, but they didn't expect that someone else would ask for it first. In the blink of an eye, 2,000 yuan was in her hands. Grandma's son really admired Skybolt Pig. With this little guy participating, it wasn't just scavenging, it was simply picking up money. In one morning, Grandma's son and the other two went to the old goods recycling market and the second-hand phone recycling market 3 times and got more than 3,000 yuan in one go. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1829. Please remember the domain name, or at Lin Yi's enemies were looking for Lin Yi. Even if Faubert was out in the open, no one would go after him. After all, Peng Zhan was a cripple, and he could die at any moment. No practitioner would go after someone who was about to die. Besides, Peng Zhan didn't have anything left anymore. There was no way a hidden house would do something like this without any benefits. It was a taboo for Earth-class masters to enter the common world, and attacking normal people was even more so. No one wanted to cross that line. After hanging up, Ming Yao, Yushu, and the old grandma went to a nearby bank and transferred the 100,000 from the old grandma and Jiang Wen to Faubert. Li Fu. When the money was transferred, the old lady glanced at the name on the money order and subconsciously read it out in her mind. "Yes, it's Faubert's name. Have you heard of him, Grandma?" Ming Yao nodded. "No." The old grandma shook her head. "It's a familiar feeling, but I don't know him." "Grandma, so your surname is Sunday. I'll call you Grandma's son from now on." Ming Yao looked at the name on Grandma's son's bankbook and found out that her surname was Sunday. "I think it's Sun. It's been so long, I don't really remember it. I got this name when I moved here," Grandma's son said. Ming Yao paused. She realized that Grandma's son always said that it was too long ago, and she couldn't remember it. Maybe something happened to Grandma's son, and she forgot about it? Or she didn't want to talk about it. But Meng Yao wasn't a meddlesome person, so she didn't ask too much. After transferring the money to Faubert, the three left the bank and began their day of scavenging. The autumn sun was cruel. This was the meaning of the tiger of autumn. Under the hot sun, an old grandma brought 2 girls through the streets and alleys, searching through every trash can in every corner of the business district. This was a route that the old grandma had walked for many years, and the harvest every day was about the same. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't much either. At the end of the day, 200 to 300 yuan of income was already very good. It was a far cry from the 5,000 yuan that Xiao Shu expected. "General Weiwu, other dogs have sensitive noses. You should help." Meng Yao saw that this wasn't going to work, so she started encouraging General Weiwu. Woof woof. General Weiwu was a little troubled. He could teach a dog a lesson, or even a person a lesson, but picking up trash was something he'd never done before. He understood that Meng Yao was doing this for Lin Yi's sake, And so he started learning from Mingyao and the others, going around the corners. With General Weiwu's help, they managed to pick up a lot of waste paper and beverage bottles from places that weren't easily discovered. However, these could only increase their income by tens of yuan. It was impossible for them to earn more than 1,000 yuan. The day passed quickly, and Mingyao and Yushu realized that they only got 500 yuan today when they were counting their spoils. It was only a tenth of the 5,000 they needed. However, it was only 500 yuan, and Grandma Sun was already very happy. According to her, on normal days, it was only a few dozen yuan. On holidays, it was no more than 300 yuan. Now that she had 500 yuan, it was already considered a lot. Mingyao and Yushu were silent. They knew that picking up trash wasn't a profitable business, otherwise, everyone would have gone there already. After brewing Lin Yi's medicine, Lin Yi drank it, and Mingyao and Shu sat opposite each other troubled. Their future was bleak and bleak. This was the true portrayal of their current mood. 500 yuan wasn't even enough to buy medicine for Lin Yi, let alone Pengzhan's medical fees. Shu, why don't we go to Yin Yun's house tomorrow and borrow some money? Mingyao really didn't have a choice, but she knew that Mrs. Tang had a lot of money. She believed that Mrs. Tang would borrow money to buy medicine for Lin Yi. Yeah, that's the only way. Yushu nodded. However, what they didn't know was that Mrs. Tang had already been taken away by the people from the Snow Valley. First, Tang Yun was worried about her parents who were far away in Songshan, and second, she was afraid that her parents would say something to Lin Yi, making her waste her effort to give Lin Yi the forgetful grass. So the next day, when Mingyao and Yushu came to Tang Yun's house, they found that Tang Yun's house was empty. According to the neighbors, there was no one there since a few days ago. At this point, Mingyao and Yushu could roughly guess Tang Yun's intention, but the problem was that they didn't have Shuegu's contact information. According to Shuegu, after Tang Yun stayed there, it meant that they wouldn't be in contact with each other. Naturally, they wouldn't give them any contact information. Mrs. Tang couldn't be helped, and Yun Yun and Xiao Xiao couldn't be contacted. Mingyao and Yushu could only rely on Old Lin. But, while Old Lin had his own herb garden, and most of the ingredients were there, Pengzhan's medical fees were still nowhere to be found. Old Lin's herbs were barely enough to sustain Lin Yi's medicine, and Pengzhan's medical fees were nowhere to be found. Furthermore, the West Star Mountain village did not have express deliveries, and Old Lin could not leave the West Star Mountain village. It was a very troublesome matter to send the medicinal herbs to a courier company in a nearby town. By the time the medicinal herbs were sent out, it would be too late. Distant water could not put out a nearby fire. Helpless, Mingyao and Yushu could only continue to scavenge with Grandma Sunday. But after 2 days of scavenging, Mingyao and Yushu realized that there were many competitors in this line of work. Other than them, there were also other scavengers, and in this line of work, it was all about eyes and hands. It didn't matter who saw it first, the important thing was who got it first. According to Grandma Sun, there were different rules for scavenging in every city, and Songshan was the same. She had been following this rule for many years, so even if her legs weren't nimble before, she had trained her eyes and hands to be quick. And because of this, after she recovered, her scavenging speed was even faster, obviously faster than the other scavengers. And so her daily harvest was not bad. Actually, just relying on these waste paper and bottles every day isn't the most profitable. Grandma Sun said, sometimes you can put some in the trash in the residential area, and you can pick up some old furniture and appliances. These are the most profitable. Sometimes, in some rich people's areas, you can find some change in the discarded clothes. It's not much, but sometimes it's at most a few hundred yuan. There was once, in front of a villa, I found 3,000 yuan in a leather jacket, and when I went to the villa to return the money, the villa's housekeeper only said thank you, and let me leave. For the latest chapters, please log on. It's a pleasure to read, and I recommend you bookmark it. Chapter 1830. Chapter 1842. Skybolt Pig's Treasure Hunt. Part 1. Mengyao and Yushu blushed when they heard Grandma Sun's words. They used to throw their old clothes away, and they often forgot to take out the change inside. But they didn't feel bad about throwing them away. Grandma Sun's words seemed to be mocking their old lifestyles. Mengyao and Yushu knew that Grandma Sun didn't mean it like that. But they couldn't help but think about their old lives. In the past, they thought that they were already very thrifty compared to some rich second generations who lived a luxurious life. But now they found that they were still very extravagant. Of course, if they were the people in the villa that Grandma Sun had mentioned, they might have made the same choice. 3,000 was a small amount to them in the past. If someone kind enough picked it up and gave it back, they would naturally think that the person was a good person and give it to him. But now that was then and this was now. Of course, these are all things that we can't ask for. Our main source of income is still these waste paper and bottles. Grandma Sun didn't notice the unnatural expression on Mengyao and Yushu's faces. Oh, let's continue to scavenge. Yushu blushed. Guan Xuemin's house. There were a few people sitting here. They weren't familiar with each other, but they were all related to Guan Xuemin and Lin Yi, so they gathered together. These people were Guan Xuemin, Fatty Lai, Wu Chintian, Sun Jingyi, Lingshan and Yutian. Lingshan and Yutian told Guan Xuemin and Fatty Lai about Lin Yi's predicament, hoping that they could think of a way to solve it. But Yu Lu was from a hidden house, and none of the people here could go against a hidden house. Man, I wanted to talk to Dean Qin and ask him to waive Pingzhan's medical fees, but Xiang turned me down, Xuemin said with a bitter smile. Guan Xiaoxiang had already fought with Guan Xuemin because of the bankruptcy of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Guan Xiaoxiang reminded Guan Xuemin not to be cheated, but in the end, all of Guan Xuemin's money went into Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, but it still couldn't save the company from bankruptcy. Once the capital chain of a rapidly developing pharmaceutical company was broken, it would be like a building that would collapse in an instant. There would be no room for recovery. That was why Guan Xiaoxiang took it to heart. When he was young, he wanted to use Xuemin's name to start a pharmaceutical company, but he was never allowed to do so. This time, he was naturally unhappy with those related to Lin Yi. Pengzhan's medical fees were of course official business. Not a single cent could be deducted. This time, everyone came to Guan Xuemin's house to discuss Pengzhan's medical fees. After all, when Fatty Lai's company was in crisis, these people basically took out their personal savings. Now they didn't have any money to take out. Man, if I hadn't sold my company earlier, I wouldn't be in so much trouble right now. Sun Jingyi sighed. House Sun had tacitly agreed to Sun Jingyi's freedom of love, so Sun Jingyi sold her company and returned to House Sunday. Now Lin Yi was in trouble. An elder son froze Sun Jingyi's account, leaving Sun Jingyi with no money to use. Wu Chintian's old man, Wu Gonggao, was even more snobbish, and Chintian became penniless as well. House Song and House Chun, on the other hand, weren't families with much business. Their salaries wouldn't be enough to pay for Pengzhan's medical fees. It's all my fault. If I wasn't in a hurry to expand the factory, I wouldn't have ended up like this. Fatty Lai said, heartbroken. Forget it, this isn't the time to blame. Guan Xuemin sighed. If it comes down to it, I'll put down my pride and talk to Dean Qin. I don't need to deduct the medical fees, but can we postpone it for a while? As long as Lin Yi recovers, everything will be fine. Yeah, when boss recovers, we'll take back what we lost. Fatty Lai nodded. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. Although they had General Wei Wu's help, the three's daily income was only 500 to 1,000. There weren't many problems, and Lin Yi's medical fees were completely supported by the money that Grandma Sun didn't have time to deposit in the bank. But seeing that the money was dwindling day by day, Mengyao and Yushu were very worried. If this continued, there would be a day when they wouldn't be able to last until Lin Yi woke up. If it comes down to it, let's get Skybolt Pig to join the operation tomorrow, Mengyao said. Skybolt Pig was currently staying with Lin Yi at home every day. Since Skybolt's body was too unique, Mingyao didn't want to attract people's attention if she brought him out. But there was no other choice now. Skybolt Pig. Yushu suddenly had an idea. Isn't Skybolt Pig able to find treasures? In that case, can it find junk? Yeah. Mingyao blinked at Yushu's words. How did I forget that? If Skybolt Pig can find treasures, then it should be able to find treasures in trash as well. Right? Skybolt Pig, come here. Yushu waved at Skybolt Pig. Skybolt Pig seemed to have heard the conversation between Mingyao and Yushu, and walked over unwillingly. Can you find something valuable in the trash? Don't say no, Yushu said to Skybolt Pig. Skybolt Pig was speechless. What was the point of asking if he couldn't say no? He could only nod his head in grievance. Alright, you'll pretend to be a dog tomorrow. I'll give you some furry clothes, and you'll help us search for treasures, Yushu said. Disguise as a dog? The Skybolt Pig immediately shook its head. It was different from humans. It was used to not wearing clothes. If it suddenly wore furry clothes, wouldn't it die from the heat? I'm telling you, Shield Bro won't wake up if you don't help with the treasure hunt. No one's going to help you level up in the future. You'll be on your own, Yushu threatened. Skybolt Pig wasn't scared at all. After hearing Yushu's words, he quickly nodded in agreement. Let's pretend to be a dog then. We'll see how you perform tomorrow. Yushu nodded in satisfaction. In actuality, Mingyao and Yushu didn't have much hope before Skybolt Pig joined the scavenger hunt. Chapter 1831. This little thing had a sharp nose for treasures, but it was hard to say when it came to trash. Please remember, but if Skybolt Pig really did find a treasure, wouldn't he be able to sell it for a lot of money? It was better than nothing. It was always good to try his luck. The next day, Mingyao, Yushu, and Grandma Sun brought General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig with them. Grandma Sun already knew the best route every day, so she followed the same route almost every day. But today, after walking for a short while, the Skybolt Pig pointed in a direction with its paw and squeaked. Oh! Mingyao hesitated, but decided to listen to Skybolt Pig. Grandma Sun, let's go in that direction. Okay. Grandma Sun was puzzled as well. Why would Mingyao trust this pig? But this pig was obviously different from normal pigs. So Grandma Sun decided to trust it for once, with Skybolt Pig. The three of them and General Weiwu chased it to a trash can. Skybolt Pig pointed at the trash can with his paw and squeaked again. What are you squeaking for? If there's anything good, go take it out, Yushu yelled at Skybolt Pig. Squeak, squeak. Skybolt Pig looked at the dirty trash can feeling wronged. He was an ancient spiritual beast. He had never been treated like this before. But he had to save Lin Yi, so he walked towards the trash can unwillingly. Let me do it for you. Grandma Sun didn't mind. Digging through trash was a common thing for her. She didn't have any psychological barriers at all. With that, Grandma Sun began to rummage through the trash can. Soon, she found a few drink bottles and a few waste paper boxes from the trash can. However, these gains could only be regarded as ordinary. You could find something like this in any trash can, and it wasn't worth it to go this far. But the trash can was almost bottom. Grandma Sun had already found all the obvious stuff. There probably wasn't anything valuable left. Haha, let's just look for it step by step in the future. Grandma Sun put the cardboard boxes and bottles on the trolley and was about to leave, but the Skybolt Pig pointed at the trash can and continued to squeak. At first, Yushu was a little annoyed at Skybolt Pig for finding so little stuff in the trash. Just as he was about to reprimand it, he heard that it was still barking. He was taken aback and asked, Skybolt Pig, are you saying that there's something good in there? Gigi. The Skybolt Pig nodded affirmatively. Grandma Sun was surprised to see a pig that could understand human language. However, since it said there were more, Grandma Sun believed it this time. Once again, she carefully rummaged through the trash can. This time, she was more careful than the last time. Her eyes were no longer focused on the beverage bottles and paper shells. Finally, at the bottom of the bin, Grandma Sun found an iPhone. However, on the screen of the iPhone, it was obviously damaged, but Grandma's son tested it and found that the phone could still be turned on. In other words, the owner of the phone might have been injured after the phone screen was damaged. He just threw it away and didn't bother to repair it. Grandma's son picked up junk every day, so naturally, she had a lot of experience. It was common for her to pick up broken phones like this. This iPhone only had a broken screen. If the other functions were normal, she could sell it to a second-hand phone shop for at least $1,000. This reward made Grandma's son overjoyed. She didn't expect this little pig to have such abilities. The reward of this broken phone was equivalent to 2 days of her usual income. This broken phone, can you sell it for money? Mengyao looked at the excited Grandma's son strangely. Of course, this iPhone is the latest model. It's just a broken screen. The other functions should be fine. If you sell it to a second-hand shop, you can sell it for at least $1,000. Grandma's son said. Mengyao's face reddened. This was the first time she knew that a broken phone like this could be sold for money. She would throw it away when there was a problem with her phone in the past. She would never think of selling it. Not bad, Skybolt Pig. Yushu looked at Skybolt Pig with praise. Keep it up. If you can earn more money every day, Shield Bro will wake up sooner. I'll ask him to help you level up. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig heard Yushu's words and nodded happily. After leaving the place, the three didn't return to their previous location. Instead, they started to pick up scraps on the streets. This time, it didn't take long before Skybolt Pig pointed at a direction and barked again. This time, Grandma's son was experienced. She didn't need Mengyao and Yushu to say anything. She pushed the cart and followed Skybolt Pig. She was afraid that if she was late, someone else would get the good stuff first. The Skybolt Pig led the way, and after a few twists and turns, they arrived at another residential area. A family was moving, and beside the moving company's car, there was an old-fashioned refrigerator and some old furniture. Skybolt Pig pointed at the old fridge and the old furniture and barked. Excuse me, do you not want this thing anymore? Grandma's son hesitated for a while and walked to the moving car. She asked the person who was obviously the employer. I don't want it anymore. I bought a new house. This thing is old and not very useful anymore. If you want it, I'll give it to you. The employer waved his hand casually and said to Grandma Sunday. The fridge wasn't very old. It looked like it could still be used. The furniture that was thrown away was a copper bedside table, some angle iron and wooden boards. This kind of copper bed was not popular anymore. The employer must have gotten rich and bought a new house. These old things that affected the style of the house were definitely not going to be used anymore. Thank you very much, Grandma's son said, and moved the fridge and the copper bedside table to the cart. According to Grandma's son's experience, the fridge could be sold for at least $300 to $500, and the copper bedside table could be sold for a few hundred just by selling it as scrap copper. Adding these two things together, it was almost $1,000. The moving company worker looked at Grandma's son with envy. Obviously, they wanted to get these old things back from the employer, but they didn't expect someone else to ask for it first. In the blink of an eye, $2,000 was in her hands. Grandma's son really admired Skybolt Pig. With this little guy's participation, how was this scavenging? It was simply picking up money. In one morning, Grandma's son and the other two went to the old goods recycling market and the second-hand phone recycling market 3 times. They got more than $3,000 in one go. Chapter 1832. Recovering his senses in the afternoon, Skybolt Pig showed off his prowess. Not only did he find a lot of discarded cell phones and household appliances, he even found a couple of old bags from the Villa district. They were all from international brands, and he brought them to a second-hand shop and sold them for more than 10,000 kwai. His income for the day was close to 20,000 kwai. Grandma's son was shocked, and she couldn't help but admire Skybolt Pig. Meng Yao and Yushu let out a breath of relief when they saw that Skybolt Pig was really able to find these valuable items. From now on, as long as they followed Skybolt Pig to pick up these things, they wouldn't have to pick up mineral water bottles, beverage bottles, and cardboard boxes anymore. With Skybolt Pig around, they would always be able to reach the places where the valuable items were thrown away. Although sometimes, other scavengers would get there before them, and they wouldn't be able to find anything, but overall Skybolt Pig was still very fast. With the help of the ice spirit fruit and medicine, Linny slowly regained consciousness, and he woke up from his coma. However, he only woke up in the jade space, and he still couldn't feel his body. Linny opened his eyes in the jade space, and he felt extremely hot all over his body. Every single meridian in his body felt like it was on fire, and it was very painful. "You're awake." Jiao Yazi saw that Linny had woken up, and he was surprised and happy at the same time. Jiao Yazi had been panicking all this time. He was just a phantom, and he couldn't do anything about Lin Yi's coma. He couldn't contact the outside world either, and he could only watch Linny pass out every day. Although Jiao Yazi could feel that Lin Yi's body temperature was dropping, he couldn't guarantee that Linny would wake up. It all depended on how the outside world treated Lin Yi. Now that Linny had woken up, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. "Jiao Lao, what happened to me?" Linny asked in a daze. He remembered that he was cultivating before, and then he didn't know anything. Previously, something went wrong in your cultivation, and you went berserk. Don't you remember? Jiao Yazi said. "Oh, chi deviation." Yes. Linny nodded as he recalled the pain he had suffered during his cultivation. However, he did not know why he had suffered chi deviation. "But why did this happen? I'm not sure either. You'll have to find the reason yourself after you wake up," Jiao Yazi said. He could only communicate with the outside world through Lin Yi. Since Lin Yi was unconscious, Jiao Yazi naturally could not hear the conversation between Mo Kongwen and Old Lin. "Wake up. How can I wake up?" Lin Yi tried, but unfortunately, he could not return to the real world from the space in the jade pendant. He could not even communicate with the outside world. The people around you must have taken some measures to temporarily suppress the fire poison in your body. However, just relying on them alone is not enough. Jiao Yazi said. The medicine from the outside world can only help you suppress and slowly refine the fire poison. However, once the fire poison is absorbed by your body, it will affect your body. It will do more harm than good. Therefore, it's best for you to force the fire poison out of your body yourself. This way, you can maintain the purity of the vital qi in your body, and it will be easier for you to cultivate the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Force it out of my body. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He then asked, "What do I have to do to force the fire poison out of my body?" You can try to use the art of dragon mastery to guide the vital qi in your body, to gather all the fire poison in your meridians. Then, you can release the fire poison in one go like how you released a vital qi bomb. Jiao Yazi said. "Gather it together? Can't I find some and force some out?" Lin Yi asked. "That's fine. But can you wake up now? I mean your body in the outside world." Jiao Yazi asked. I can't." Lin Yi shook his head. "That's it." Jiao Yazi said. "You can't even wake up. How can you release your vital qi? Are you trying to release it into the space in the jade pendant? If you release it here, when you absorb the energy in the space in the jade pendant, you will be in danger of being sucked back at any time." "I see." Lin Yi immediately understood what Jiao Yazi meant. In other words, I can only wake up when I gather all the fire poison in my meridians, right? "That's it." Jiao Yazi nodded. "Man, I still have to force the fire poison out of my body. If I was like Zhang Naipeo, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. At this moment he was envious of Zhang Naipeo. "As far as I know, yes." Jiao Yazi's answer surprised Lin Yi. "Yes." Lin Yi was shocked. "But I can't do it now. But in my memory, you should be able to do it. Maybe you can do it in the future. But I might have remembered wrongly and mixed up the mantra in the Chrysanthemum Treasured Book." Jiao Yazi shook his head. "My memory isn't unlocked. I only have a vague impression. All right. Lenny heard Jiao Yazi's words and felt disappointed. Even if he could, now wasn't the time. And there was a chance that Elder Jiao might have remembered wrongly, messing up Naipeo's memories of the chrysanthemum arts. Right now, he needed to use the art of dragon mastery to guide the fire poison in his meridians, compressing it together and forcing it out of his body. Calming himself down, Lenny focused all his energy and channeled the first stage of the art of dragon mastery. He started searching for the fire poison in his meridians. Lenny had the experience of repairing his own meridians multiple times before, so he was very familiar with the meridians in his body. He channeled the art of dragon mastery with ease, letting the pure energy flow through his meridians, searching for the fire poison in them. Of course, at the start, Lenny didn't focus on the parts of his body that were affected by the fire poison. Instead, he focused on his hands and feet, where there were fewer meridians. With fewer meridians, the fire poison would be less. Even if something went wrong, it wouldn't cause too much damage. Lenny carefully channeled the qi through his right arm, and finally found the fire poison in his meridians. Strictly speaking, this fire poison was a mutated fire qi. It was mutated from Lin Yi's universal qi, but Lin Yi's art of dragon mastery was like a one-way converter. He could convert his universal qi into other kinds of qi, but he couldn't convert other kinds of qi into his own universal qi. Chapter 1833. A delightful discovery. This was the exact opposite of Naipeo. This was also why Lin Yi envied Naipeo. But looking at it from a different point, Naipeo could convert other people's qi into his own, and that meant that his qi wouldn't have any healing abilities. Lin Yi still had an advantage in this aspect. This mutated fire poison qi filled every corner of Lin Yi's arm. They weren't connected, but were spread out. Perhaps it was because of the suppression from the outside world. They were temporarily suppressed by the qi in his body. Without the suppression from the outside world, they would probably have the upper hand. Lin Yi carefully used his own qi to surround the fire poison qi, thinking of a way to gather it all together. Only by gathering it together and suppressing it would Lin Yi wake up and force it out of his body. But while it sounded easy, it was extremely difficult to do. When Lin Yi's qi came into contact with the fire poison qi, the originally peaceful fire poison qi became restless again. Lin Yi suddenly felt an incomparably hot aura coming from the fire poison qi, making his entire body shiver. This fire poison qi was terrifying. It was just a moment, but it was enough to make people feel intimidated, not wanting to go near it at all. As expected, going mad was the biggest obstacle in the path of martial arts. Since the ancient times, there had been many geniuses who had been ruined by going mad, either going mad for the rest of their lives, or exploding and dying. Even with Lin Yi's strong willpower, when he first came into contact with the fire poison qi, he had the urge to give up immediately. But Lin Yi took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and persevered. He quickly channeled the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, using his qi to force the fire poison qi to his right hand. Lin Yi was prepared to force all the fire poison qi in his body to his right hand, and then force it out at the same time. But in the next moment, Lin Yi realized that while his thoughts were perfect, the fire poison qi didn't seem to listen to the art of dragon mastery at all. It even seemed to be resisting it. This shocked Lin Yi. How could this fire poison qi be so strong? A dash! After half an hour of struggle, Lin Yi finally couldn't hold it in any longer, and gave up. This was because he realized that no matter how hard he tried, the fire poison qi didn't listen to his command, and didn't move at all. You tell me to go east, I won't go west, but I won't go east either. I'll stay where I am. What can you do to me? Although it was only half an hour, Lin Yi was already sweating profusely. He felt that the strength he used to fight the fire poison qi, for half an hour, was more difficult than breaking through to the next level. Jiao Lao, I can't do it anymore. The fire poison qi doesn't listen to me at all. I can't force them together. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and said to Jiao Lao. That's right, if it listened to you, then it would be strange. Jiao Yazi listened to Lin Yi's words, but nodded as if it was a matter of course. Huh? Lin Yi's eyes widened, and he said in surprise, What do you mean? Isn't this what you want me to do? I did ask you to do this, but when did I say that you should use the first stage of the art of dragon mastery to drive away the fire poison qi? Jiao Yazi asked. If I don't use the first stage, then use the second stage? Lin Yi retorted confidently. It's because I trained in the second stage that I went crazy. Wouldn't I be looking for death if I still used the second stage? Didn't you already lose control? Furthermore, the people in the outside world must have given you the antidote to suppress your qi deviation. You have already passed the second stage of body tempering and the early stage of foundation establishment. You won't suffer qi deviation anymore. At least you won't suffer qi deviation for the same reason. Jiao Yazi explained. This fire poison qi is caused by the qi deviation when you cultivated the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. You want to use the first stage of the art of dragon mastery to drive it away. It's impossible even if you think about it. Lin Yi wiped the sweat off his forehead, a little embarrassed. Indeed, he didn't think of this before. The fire poison was caused by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Why would it be afraid of the first stage of the art of dragon mastery? No wonder it wasn't afraid, and even had a faint intention to resist. He used the wrong method. Then, why didn't you remind me before, or stop me from doing useless things? Lin Yi said sadly, wasting half an hour of effort. When you were cultivating, I didn't dare to disturb you. I was afraid that if I reminded you, you would lose control again, and the loss would outweigh the gain, Jiao Yazi said seriously. Lin Yi was speechless. In the past when he was cultivating normally, Jiao Yazi often talked to him. But now he was afraid. However, Lin Yi also understood that he had lost control, and it had traumatized Jiao Yazi, so he was afraid that something would go wrong in other aspects. After resting for a while, Lin Yi started cultivating the art of dragon mastery again. But this time, he was cultivating the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Because he wasn't very familiar with it, Lin Yi was carefully exploring and cultivating. Before he was familiar with the art of dragon mastery, Lin Yi tried his best not to touch the fire poison qi. As for the fire poison qi, Lin Yi didn't touch them, so they naturally didn't care what Lin Yi was doing. About a day later, Lin Yi had completely mastered the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. It couldn't be said to be a small achievement, but at least he could use it freely. And Lin Yi didn't plan to make any progress in cultivation before the fire poison was expelled. Slowly, Lin Yi began to try to use the second stage of the art of dragon mastery to guide the qi in his body to wrap around the fire poison qi. And at this moment, something happened that shocked Lin Yi. The fire poison that had been so arrogant, after encountering the pure energy of the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, became fearful and fearful. It was no longer as arrogant as before. Feeling this scene, Lin Yi was immediately overjoyed, but also a little embarrassed. If he had done this earlier, the previous half an hour of effort would not have been wasted. The fire poison qi, under the guidance of the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, was wrapped by Lin Yi's qi. Although it was a little reluctant, it still moved slowly. This change made Lin Yi even more happy. Although the fire poison moved very slowly, it was a good thing that it could move. It seemed that although the fire poison was a mutation of the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, it was still unable to resist the real second stage of the qi. Chapter 1834. Once again finally, the small ball of fire poison qi was sent to the end of Lin Yi's right palm, and Lin Yi started moving the second ball of fire poison qi. With the experience from before, he was much more familiar with the process. Soon, The second ball of fire poison chi was sent to the end of Lin Yi's right palm as well, merging with the first ball of fire poison chi, forming an even bigger ball of fire poison chi. As long as he had the perseverance, he'd be able to gather all the fire poison chi in his body. Yu Lu returned to the hidden house. Xiaochen didn't blame him, but it was still a pity that he'd lost such a great opportunity. After that, Xiaochen went to see the old ancestor of House Yu once more, telling him everything that had happened. It's regretful, but you did the right thing. Old ancestor Yu nodded and said seriously, if Yu Lu was really hurt, haha, then our House Yu wouldn't be able to get away with this either. Yes, Xiaochen nodded. But giving up on the search for Lin Yi just like that, isn't that a bit of a waste? Of course it's a waste to give up, but with just our hidden House Yu's strength, finding someone who has the heart to hide in Songshan is extremely difficult. Old ancestor Yu said. Especially with Ling Shan and Chun Yutian in the middle, it'll be even more troublesome. But Lin Yi's enemies aren't just our House Yu only. There's the hidden House Zhao and the hidden House Yu. We'll pull them in to look for Lin Yi. That'll be much easier. Then the Qi gathering pill. Xiaochen was worried that the pill would fall into someone else's hands. Naturally, we won't tell them about the pill, and when we make our move, we can make an agreement that all three houses will send practitioners to cause trouble for Lin Yi. That way, all three of us will have less responsibility, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to work with us. Old ancestor Yu said, all right, we'll do as you say, father. Xiaochen nodded. Don't look at how the Yu family failed to contact the great elder. Which one of these hidden families wasn't a smart person? Even though the threat of the first elder, and that person should be gone, these people were still waiting to see what would happen. Yu Lu went out for a stroll, and didn't attract any trouble, so they couldn't wait to go out and take a look themselves. Coincidentally, there was a message from House Yu, asking them to search for Lin Yi together. Naturally they agreed. Thus, the hidden house of Yu and the hidden house of Zhao all came to Songshan City and began to inquire about Lin Yi's whereabouts in the sea of people. Of course, all of this was done in secret. After all, Ling Shan was the captain of the criminal investigation team, and if they did it openly, Ling Shan would definitely know about it. If Ling Shan was in contact with Lin Yi, then she'd notify Lin Yi and the others immediately, making them even more vigilant. Finding Lin Yi's traces would be even harder. It was a difficult period of time. Meng Yao and Yushu worked hard every day, but they were happy. Although they were tired to the point that their bodies ached, they were happy. Whenever they found an old phone or an old appliance, they'd be filled with energy, and they'd move on to the next target. The Skybolt Pig's cry became their motivation. However, even though it was hard work, not only did they save enough money for Lin Yi's medical expenses, but they also had money for Pengzhan's medical expenses. Meng Yao would send Faubert 10 to 20,000 yuan every 2 to 3 days. Even Li Fu was speechless at how fast they were earning money. If he didn't know what kind of people Meng Yao and Yushu were, he would have thought that they'd gone into some shady business. After all, these two girls had to pay for Lin Yi's medical bills and still save 5,000 to 10,000 kuai a day. What did they have to do to earn that much? It would be fine if they were white-collar workers in big companies, but they didn't have any social experience, and they didn't have a university degree. Which company could they go to get such a salary? But since Meng Yao and Yushu didn't say anything, Faubert didn't ask. He knew that Yushu and Yao Yao weren't frivolous people. Today's income is almost 20,000 yuan. Meng Yao couldn't stop smiling. In the past, she wouldn't even feel anything when she earned 20,000 yuan. After all, Pengzhan Industries made a lot of money every day. 20,000 yuan wasn't much. But now, she was jumping with joy because of this 20,000 yuan. This was the life-saving money for Lin Yi and her father. Yeah, I'm so happy. Skybolt Pig, you're amazing. I'll ask Shield Bro to be the first to level up, and let you level up before General Weiwu. Yushu wouldn't be stingy with her promise, since it didn't cost her any money. But just this alone was enough to make Skybolt Pig happy. General Weiwu, on the other hand, was a little depressed. He was the big brother, and Meng Yao was the second brother. but the big brother leveled up slower than the second brother. Oink oink. Skybolt Pig looked at General Weiwu proudly. As if he was showing off, he shook his little body in front of General Weiwu. Next, Lenny gathered the fire poison in his heart and head into his right palm. He realized that his long-lost connection with the outside world was restored. Although he couldn't wake up yet, he could clearly feel what was happening outside his body. Lenny wasn't surprised. Lenny used his heart and head to connect with the outside world. Now that the fire poison in these two parts was gone, his connection with the outside world was restored. He was in an unfamiliar room. The decorations in the room were old and broken. One could even say that there were no decorations at all. He was lying on an old iron folding bed. Beside his bed was an old table with some clothes and female products. Lenny could tell that these belonged to Mingyao and Yushu. Beside the foldable bed was a mattress. The so-called mattress was a mattress and quilt placed on the ground, allowing people to sleep on the ground. This must be where Mingyao and Yushu slept. Lenny didn't understand why he was sleeping in such an old place. Although the place was clean and spotless, it was still too old. It couldn't even compare to West Star Village. Lenny couldn't find a place like this in his memory. Not long after, just when Lenny was confused, footsteps came from outside the room. Mingyao and Yushu's happy voices were heard. Chapter 1835. Touched Yao sis. I didn't think that the old laptop could be sold for more than 2,000 just because the hard disk was broken, Yushu said excitedly. I thought it would only be a few hundred, but today we broke the 20,000 mark. Yeah, but thanks to Grandma Sun's connections, we wouldn't be able to understand why those second-hand electronics merchants would lie to us. Mingyao was happy as well. Today's income was more than what they had expected. Lenny listened to the two and couldn't help but feel strange. What laptop sold for more than 2,000? Who was Grandma Sun? Mingyao and Yushu entered the room, and the first thing they did was to check on Lin Yi's condition. After making sure that Lenny was fine, they nodded in relief. Shoo, I'll go brew the medicine, you take a shower first, Mingyao said. Okay. Every day they go out to pick up scraps. Both of them are dirty. This is something that Xiao Shu and Yao Yao who love to be clean. How can they stand it? Luckily, Grandma Sun had an old-fashioned water heater, so they could take a shower every night before going to bed. Of course, they would still be dirty after putting on the dirty clothes the next day, but at least they could sleep comfortably at night. Because of the smell of medicine, Yushu would take a shower first, and Mingyao would take a shower after brewing the medicine. This way, the two of them could share the hot water. Otherwise, the water heater wouldn't be able to supply enough hot water for both of them at once. Lenny saw how dirty they were and felt that it was strange. What were they doing? However, Lenny could only sense what was going on in the outside world. He couldn't ask with a clear mind, so he could only bury the question in his heart. However, what Lenny didn't expect was that Yushu started taking off her clothes not long after Mingyao left the room. In a blink of an eye, she was naked. Lenny felt like his blood was about to explode. Although he had seen Shu naked before, Lenny realized that he could see things more clearly with his senses. Previously, he only had a cursory glance, but now, he could see everything clearly. Shield bro. After Shu showers, I'll help you wipe your body. You haven't showered in a while too. Yushu didn't know that Lin Yi could sense her as she walked up to Lin Yi. Suddenly, Lin Yi felt like he couldn't stand it anymore. His body was burning hot because of Shu. The fire poison that was originally under control started to get restless again. This situation shocked Lin Yi. He quickly cut off his connection with the outside world. Although Xiao Shu was beautiful, if he looked at her any longer, he would be even more obsessed. Lin Yi didn't dare to look at her anymore. Phew! Lin Yi calmed himself down and quickly gathered his thoughts. Lust was like a knife to his head. He almost went crazy again because of this. This made Lin Yi very scared. What's wrong? Jiao Yazi looked at Lin Yi strangely. He didn't know why he was so short of breath. Nothing. Laney was too embarrassed to say what he saw. He smiled bitterly and continued to push the fire poison into the meridians of his right hand. After a while, Laney realized that his body in the outside world seemed to have been lifted up by someone. Curious, Laney stopped expelling the poison and used his senses to sense what was going on in the outside world. He realized that Ming Yao was slowly helping him up, feeding him a bowl of medicine that she'd brewed. Laney had no idea what the medicine tasted like and whether it was hot or not. He was only using his senses to communicate with the outside world. If he could smell the medicine, it meant that he was about to wake up. But Laney was puzzled. What was this place? School is about to start, and Laney hasn't woken up yet. We can't go and register. Ming Yao smiled bitterly. I hope Laney will wake up soon. Yeah, otherwise we'll have to rely on scavenging for a living. Although we have Skybolt Pig, we can find good stuff every day. Yushu nodded. It's been a tough but fulfilling life. Shoo, we can finally do something for Lin Yi, Ming Yao sighed. Yes. These days have made me understand how difficult it was for Uncle Chu to make money in the past. Little Shu nodded. But when Shield Bro recovers, everything will be fine. We can live like a missy again. Ming Yao was speechless. The more Lin Yi listened to their conversation, the stranger he felt. But he couldn't ask them directly. He could only judge from their conversation that these two seemed to be living a hard life. They relied on scavenging for a living. And the strangest thing was that they were using Skybolt pigs to scavenge for scraps. No wonder they could pick up 20,000 yuan worth of junk a day. How could an ordinary person pick up so much? It was an astronomical figure. But for the Skybolt pig who had the ability to find treasures, it was really nothing. He could even find treasures, let alone these valuable old things. The two chatted for a while, and Ming Yao went to take a shower. Lin Yi quickly cut off the connection with the outside world. He just saw Shu, and if he saw the mist again he'd go crazy. After a while, Ming Yao finished her shower and came back with a basin of water. Together with Shu, she wiped Lin Yi's face and hands. As for the other parts of his body, they didn't touch them. Shu was embarrassed, but the mist didn't. The days passed by peacefully, and Lin Yi slowly got rid of the fire poison in the other meridians besides his head and heart. The effects were very obvious, and Lin Yi believed that it wouldn't be long before he woke up if he kept working hard like this. In this period of time, Lin Yi also understood one thing: why Ming Yao and Yushu were here. Through their intermittent conversation, Lin Yi understood that Peng Zhan and Fatty Lai were both bankrupt. Not only did they lose their source of income, but there was also House Yu's sixth Yu who wanted to kill him. So, they could only live in Grandma Sun's house every day and scavenge for a living. Luckily, no one would pay attention to these girls who scavenge for scraps. And Yu Lu and the others wouldn't even think that the former miss would do such a thing. Ming Yao and Yushu's attentive care touched Lin Yi immensely. He didn't think that the misses would be willing to put in so much effort. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1836. Ice Palace and Snowy Valley Ice Palace. The Ice Palace didn't have a channel like the Dark Shadow Group, and their friendship with the Hidden House Tang was broken. But the fact that Lin Yi had gone mad was something that all the hidden houses knew about, and it still reached Bingtong's ears. Ice Palace Master, do you think we should help? Little Qing told Rock Candy immediately after receiving the news. Help? Help with what? Bingtang humphed. Don't tell Xiao Xiao about this. Then, what if Lin Yi gets into danger? Qing paused. Danger? If he can't even deal with this, then he doesn't deserve Xiao Xiao. It's better if he dies. He won't be a burden to Xiao Xiao in the future. Bingtang rejected Qing's suggestion. Actually, there was something she didn't say, and was too embarrassed to say it. If Lin Yi was this weak, how could he want her to be his little wife? Bingtang held a grudge against Lin Yi for teasing her back then. She was a heaven-class late-phase peak master, the head of an ancient sect. She was actually teased by an earth-class early-phase master. and he even threatened to make her his little wife. Therefore, Bingtang was very vengeful. If you're so strong, then you should face it yourself. Qing shook her head and didn't say anything else. After all, Bingtang was the head of the Ice Palace, and Xiao Xiao hadn't become an inheritor yet. Snowy Valley. The Grand Elder finally realized that something was wrong. Although Tang Yun tried her best to hide that she'd forgotten about Lin Yi. How strong was the Grand Elder? Tang Yun was just an inheritor who had just received the inheritance. She didn't have the slightest bit of strength. It could only be said that the current Tang Yun wouldn't have to face any obstacles on her path of training. The bottleneck that other people faced during training was no longer a problem for Tang Yun. Receiving the inheritance meant that she had the body of a Sky-class late-phase peak. She could take another step forward, and so Tang Yun only needed to train step by step, and she would be able to reach Sky-class late-phase peak. Of course, Tang Yun was still too naive in the Grand Elder's eyes. It didn't take long for the Grand Elder to notice her weakness. You didn't use the forgetfulness herb? The Grand Elder's heart skipped a beat as he looked at Tang Yun, shocked and angry. I didn't. Tang Yun shook her head. She didn't want to hide it anymore. The Grand Elder looked at Tang Yun with grief and indignation. But he didn't know what to say. Lin Yi had already left. Even if he could make another bottle of forgetfulness grass, it wouldn't have any effect on Tang Yun without Lin Yi's blood. So even if the Grand Elder was angry, there was nothing he could do to remedy the situation. Sigh. After the grief and indignation, the Grand Elder couldn't help but let out a long sigh and said, "You gave Lin Yi the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass?" "Yes, I want him to forget me." "I don't want him to see my heartless face. It'll be very painful for him." Tang Yun nodded and said firmly, "Why didn't you say so earlier? If you want, I will prepare another portion of the Forgotten Love Grass medicinal liquid for you." The Grand Elder helplessly shook his head and said, "No, I won't drink it. I want to remember him forever. I want to remember the days we spent together. This will be the most precious memory in my life. I don't want to forget it." Tang Yun shook her head and said, "These days will never come again. I will keep it in my heart forever. No one can take it away." Tang Yun said firmly. The Grand Elder couldn't help but be moved. She had already experienced how strong this seemingly weak girl's character was. She was able to kneel in the snow for 15 days, and she did it with the thought of dying. This tenacity was not something others could compare with. So, the Grand Elder knew that she didn't need to persuade her. Tang Yun had already made up her mind. There was no point in persuading her. Moreover, now that there was no danger of Lin Yi going crazy, the Grand Elder and the others were begging Tang Yun. If Tang Yun gave up and stopped practicing, then it would be too late for the Grand Elder to cry. But you have to know that if you have feelings in your heart, the path of practicing the heartless spell will be full of obstacles and thorns. You might even lose your mind. It is extremely difficult. The Great Supreme Elder sighed. "It is for your own good that I let you consume the heartless herb's medicinal liquid. I know, but I appreciate Senior's kindness. I think I should be able to control the demon in my heart." Tang Yun said, "After all, the inheritor's path of practice will be smooth. Moreover, didn't the founder of the sect not use the forgetfulness herb to reach the great Tao?" The Grand Elder couldn't help but smile bitterly. She waved her hand and said, "Forget it. You have the hidden ice heart jade bone physique. Just like the founder of the sect, you can't be judged by common sense. Let's not mention this in the future." "Thank you, Senior." Tang Yun was overjoyed. As long as the Grand Elder didn't force her to forget Lin Yi, it would be fine. As for the way Tang Yun addressed the Grand Elder, she called her Senior instead of Master. After all, although the Grand Elder taught Tang Yun the heartless arts, it was nominally a disciple on behalf of the founder. Tang Yun's future position would also be the Grand Elder, an existence that was on par with the Grand Elder like Sydney. So she really didn't dare to call her Master. She could only replace it with Senior. Once Tang Yun advanced to the peak of the late phase of Heaven class, they would be the same generation. "Your parents have already gone to the Snow Valley. They have just settled down. You can go and see them when you have time to practice," the Grand Elder said. "What? Mom is already here. Tang Yin was even happier after hearing that. Yes, they are currently resting in the guest room. I have already arranged a separate courtyard for them. Once the cleaning is done, they can move in, the grand elder said. The great elder said, your birth mother and adoptive mother's physique is also very special. They belong to the normal ice physique. Although they are married women, if they are trained with the unique ice element mental cultivation method of the Snowy Valley, they will definitely reach the mystic class in their lifetime. Their lifespan will also be greatly extended. Thank you, Grand Elder. Tang Yun heard this news and was surprised and happy. After thanking the Grand Elder, she quickly ran towards the guest room. Looking at her disappearing figure, the Grand Elder sighed helplessly. She muttered to herself, Ice Heart Jade Bones. The heartless arts is to cultivate the heart. She is so concerned about family and love, how can she be heartless? However, Tang Yun was the only hope of the Snow Valley. Although the Grand Elder was unhappy, she couldn't interfere with Tang Yun's cultivation. Otherwise, if Tang Yun stopped practicing, there would be nothing she could do. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1837. True Identity West Star Village. Mo Kongwen bid farewell to Old Lin, and prepared to return. Although Old Man Lin tried his best to persuade Mo Kongwen to stay for a few more days, and had a few drinks with Old Man Lin, he still had to leave. He had completed his mission this time, and successfully helped Linny overcome the calamity. Therefore, it was time for him to go back and continue his secluded cultivation to break through that barrier. Old friend, I have to go now. Take care. Mo Kongwen smiled at Old Lin, who was standing at the entrance of the village. This time, Lil, he will have to rely on himself. Old Lin sighed. I don't know what those two are thinking, asking you to protect Lily. Although it's not exactly smooth sailing, at least there won't be so many hidden houses looking for trouble with him anymore. Mo Kongwen could only smile bitterly when he heard Old Man Lin's words. Only Old Man Lin, who had been through life and death with them, would dare to call those two fellas master, and he both had their own considerations. You should know that if iron isn't tempered, it won't become steel. If jade isn't carved, it won't become a tool. Mo Kongwen continued. Moreover, before he reaches that level, I can only fight him a few times a year. If I do it more than twice, I won't be able to explain it to my master. Moreover, some forces are out of our control. 13 years have passed. You and I haven't had many breakthroughs because of our innate talents. However, the ancient sects and hidden families are producing many talents. Especially the hidden families, there have been a few heaven-ranked masters appearing in recent years. This worries me. That's right, your worries are exactly what I'm worried about. The hidden aristocratic families are slowly getting out of control, but this is inevitable. Those two fellows aren't here anymore. And with just us two brothers, we won't be able to intimidate those heaven-ranked experts. Especially me. I can't leave yet. Old Lin smiled bitterly. But, Master must have his reasons for making this arrangement. Mo Kongwen sighed. Actually, even he couldn't predict Lin Yi's fate. It was just like what was written in the ancient records. Once an ancient scroll was obtained, the person's fate would change. The more exquisite the ancient scroll, the more unpredictable the person's fate would be. Mo Kongwen didn't believe it before. But the first time he predicted that Lin Yi was in trouble, he failed. At that time, Lin Yi had already become a mystic-ranked master, which surprised Mo Kongwen. From then on, Mo Kongwen couldn't predict Lin Yi's fate accurately. So, he decided not to predict it anymore. After saying goodbye, Mo Kongwen disappeared in the blink of an eye. Old Lin didn't find it strange at all. He just turned around and walked back. When Mo Kongwen returned to his place, his face changed slightly when he saw the communicator in the house. Mo Kongwen did not dare to be negligent. He sat cross-legged on an 8 trigrams diagram and began to calculate. After a while, Mo Kongwen opened his eyes. The result of the calculation made him shudder with fear. Mo Kongwen dialed old Lin's number again. The last time they contacted each other in the West Star Mountain Village was the first time they contacted each other using the communicator. However, this time, they contacted each other directly through the phone. "Old friend, have you returned to your place?" Old Lin asked. "Old friend Lin, there's a problem," Mo Kongwen said solemnly. "Problem? What problem?" Old Lin was startled and asked. "The hidden families might be stirring up trouble," Mo Kongwen said. "Hidden families? How can they stir up trouble? As long as the Earth class doesn't come out, with Little Yi's skills and his friends, no one will be able to touch him," Old Lin said, confused. "But what if those hidden families don't want to abide by the agreement?" Mo Kongwen sighed. After all, he and the master have been gone for so many years. The Hidden Families Arbitration Association's control over the hidden families is getting weaker and weaker. Plus, I've been in isolation to break through that barrier. I don't believe that they won't be restless. Plus, I just did a divination. The hidden family's power structure is about to change. What? At this time Old Lin was shocked. "You're saying that the masters above the Earth class are about to come out? Heh. After enduring for so many years, anyone would be tempted," Mo Kongwen said. "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have let Little Yi go back no matter what. If he stayed by your side to recover, even if they send Sky-class masters, they won't be able to come back. But I'm worried about Little Yi right now," Old Lin said hurriedly. "I didn't think that the hidden families would use this method to test me," Mo Kongwen said and told Old Lin about the communicator. Yes, Mo Kongwen was the Grand Elder of the Hidden Families Arbitration Association. However, because of what happened all those years ago, the founder of the association left, and he went into isolation to break through that final barrier. He wanted to reach the peak of his power before the opening of Sky Island, enter the heavenly path, and find his master. So, according to the promise he made to his master, he could only come out to help when Lin Yi was in irreversible danger. However, there was a clear rule: he couldn't come out more than twice a year. This was a restriction for him, and also for Lin Yi. If he always thought about having a backer, then he would not think about making progress and develop a lazy character. If he exceeded this limit, then what awaited Mo Kongwen would be the most severe punishment. Mo Kongwen regretted wasting his first chance this year, and now his second chance had been used up as well. In other words, no matter what danger there was, he couldn't come out anymore. Looks like these people planned this. Old Lin couldn't help but feel angry. If Little Yi didn't leave, those ancient sects would have to give him face. Now these new hidden houses are shaking their heads. "Old friend Lin, call the people around Little Yi and tell them to hide and avoid this. Don't give them a chance," Mo Kongwen said. "But they might not target Little Yi." This was also because Mo Kongwen didn't know about Yu Huoxing and the Qi-gathering pill, or that Zhao Qibing had become the heir of House Zhao. If he knew, he wouldn't have said this. Chapter 1838. However, these two things were kept secret between House Yu and House Zhao. Only the core members of House Yu and House Zhao knew about it, let alone Mo Kongwen. "Okay, I'll contact them right away," Old Lin said. After ending the call with Mo Kongwen, Old Lin dialed Meng Yao's number right away, but her phone was turned off. He called Yushu again, but her phone was turned off as well. Ling Yi's phone was still turned off. This situation shocked Old Lin, but even if he was anxious, there was nothing he could do from 1,000 miles away. After many unsuccessful attempts, Old Lin had no choice but to call Mo Kongwen again. "Old friend, how is it?" Mo Kongwen was anxious as well. "I can't contact them." Old Lin sighed. "Maybe they're in trouble and are hiding." Sigh. "Perhaps, everything has its own destiny. Xiao Yi is already an Earth-ranked master now. Now that he's facing some Earth-ranked opponents, it's also a form of training for him. Without adversity, how can he grow?" Mo Kongwen hesitated for a moment before he said, "Back then, Master and him. Wasn't it the same? Let's hope so." Old Lin nodded. Songshan, Mengyao, Yushu, and Grandma's son were a group of scavengers. And although they kept a low profile, they still attracted the attention of other scavengers. After all, they picked up tens of thousands of yuan worth of old stuff in a day. And even if they tried to cover it up, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in this world, especially when they were selling their old appliances and electronic products at the same place. There was bound to be a time when they would bump into each other. So after knowing their income, many scavengers were envious. Many of the scavengers showed envy and jealousy in their eyes. If it weren't for Grandma's son being a veteran in this industry, she had been scavenging for more than 10 years. She had absolute prestige, and who knew what kind of people would push them aside? However, Grandma's son was a veteran, and although many people were envious, they couldn't do anything about it. But there was nothing they could do. Grandma's son and the others could only become the topic of conversation after a meal. This phenomenon. Mengyao and Yushu were very worried. People were afraid of being famous, and pigs were afraid of being fat. Mengyao, on the other hand, didn't care. She wouldn't even care if they took a photo of her as the most beautiful scavenger girl. But now for Lin Yi, her identity couldn't be exposed. So, Mengyao and Yushu could only pray in their hearts that Lin Yi would wake up soon. So they could only end their scavenging days. Fortunately, scavenging was a relatively small industry. Their contact with the outside world was relatively small. The three of them were only known in the scavenger industry and did not attract the attention of others. Zhao and House Yu had come to Songshan together. But they didn't have much interest in Lin Yi's death. Yes. Lin and Yu, House Yu yes and Zhao. Yu and Zhao and Yu, Zhao. Yu San and yes had and Yen, Yu Chen Chun and all. Chen and Yu and Zhao and Shan, Zhao Yu and Lin Yi Lin. Although Lin Yi offended Yu Panhu, House Yu and Lin Yi didn't have a deep grudge. House Kong, on the other hand, had a deep grudge with Lin Yi. So Yu Shisan came this time to act according to the situation. Before he left, Yu Jintian had already made it clear that if he could find Lin Yi, and if the hidden House Yu and House Zhao took action, then there was no harm in Yu Shisan joining in the fun. After all, he would be returning a favor to House Kong. If he killed Lin Yi, House Kong would be very grateful to the hidden House Yu, and would work even harder to help the hidden House Yu earn more money. But if the other two houses didn't make a move, House Yu wouldn't be the first bird to stick out. House Yu, on the other hand, was different. After House Yu joined forces with House Zhao and House Yu, Yu Lu came to Songshan again. He was determined to get Lin Yi. Putting aside the fact that Lin Yi had destroyed the common House Yu, Lin Yi stealing the chi-gathering pill was enough for House Yu to make a move. As for House Zhao, they made a move this time because of the grudge between Zhao Qibing and Lin Yi. They were actually cooperating with House Yu to test the waters. In fact, this was also because Hidden House Zhao always felt that they owed Hidden House Yu. So when Hidden House Yu called, they went with the flow. As for Lin Yi, Elder Bai and Zhao Qibing naturally hated him. They wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. So House Zhao sent an Earth class. And a very high level one at that. Zhao Guang'er was the second-generation disciple of House Zhao, the same generation as the young master Zhao Guangyin. He was currently in Earth class late stage. The reason why they sent Zhao Guang'er out was because they wanted to kill Lin Yi once and for all, not giving him a chance to turn the situation around. But in the meeting of House Zhao, Zhao Qikuan had a different opinion. He didn't agree with sending a master to deal with Lin Yi. Elder Bai, that Lin Yi is so young, and he's already in Earth class early stage. The power behind him must be very strong, and we House Zhao don't need to get involved in this mess. Let the hidden House Yu and House Yu do it, or we can just send a random Earth class early stage. Zhao Qikuan said, Earth class late stage. House Zhao's strength is limited. We don't have enough masters of that level. What if something happens? Power behind him? Zhao Qibing smiled coldly. Why would he hide if he had a power behind him? Have you ever seen a disciple of an ancient sect go into hiding after going berserk? Under you lose pursuit. No one came out to support him? You call this having a background? Zhao Qikuan only wanted to stop House Zhao from doing this, but Zhao Qibing's words made sense. Alright, it's decided. I've already asked the head of the house, and it's decided. Elder Bai waved his hand. If Lin Yi isn't killed, Qibing's business in Songshan will be affected as well. That's for House Zhao's money-making, Zhao Qikuan. You don't have to interfere. Elder Bai's decisiveness was also because of old Zhao's support. House Yu and House Zhao were in-laws, so naturally, House Zhao knew that House Yu had lost a qi-gathering pill, and that Yu Huixing had blamed it on Lin Yi. And so, old Zhao wanted to use this chance to get rid of Lin Yi. That was the only way he could be at ease forever, knowing that the matter of him stealing the pill wouldn't be exposed. So even without Zhao Qibing as a reason, Elder Zhao would still send the masters of the house to kill Lin Yi, once and for all. This was also why House Zhao sent such a master. Target =_blank. Chapter 1839. Yes, Qikuan felt sorrowful. He didn't know what was so good about this Qibing that Elder Bai was so fond of him, supporting him like this. He'd tried his best, but his position in the house were far from Qibing's. He was able to attend the meeting because he'd passed the Ice Palace test and sent Qijio to the Ice Palace for training. That was why House Zhao had a higher opinion of him. But it wasn't possible for him to have a say in the family right now. On this day, Mengyao and Yushu went to the old goods market with Grandma Sun in the evening to sell the things they'd picked up during the day, only to be spotted by two familiar faces. Of course, they weren't very familiar with each other, but they'd met a couple of times. They were Boss Zhu and Chen Shi. They'd seen them at the beach, and then at the mountain behind the resort. But Boss Zhu and Chen Shi were on the other side of the market, and Mengyao, Yushu, and Grandma Sun were happily counting their money. They didn't notice that two familiar faces were looking at them in shock. Grandpa Zhu, aren't those two sisters Lin Yi Bro's rich friends? Why are they out here to scavenge? Chen Shi looked at Mengyao and Yushu curiously. Boss Zhu's eyes flashed with excitement as he said calmly, "A lot of rich kids go out to experience life during the summer. Maybe they're experiencing life. So that's how it is. Then should we go and say hello?" Chen Shi nodded in realization. "No need, you don't know them well, right? Lin Yi isn't here." Boss Zhu said. "You're right, I don't know them well, and Xiao sis isn't here." Chen Shi gave up on the idea. You go back first today. Grandpa Zhu has something to do today, so I can't go home with you." Boss Zhu said calmly. "Okay." Chen Shi didn't think much about it. Grandpa Zhu always had things to do. She was used to it. "I'll go back first then." "Okay. Don't forget to work hard." Boss Zhu reminded. "Don't worry, Grandpa Zhu, I won't let you down." Chen Shi promised with a smile. Boss Zhu left the old goods market first, hiding behind a transport truck at the entrance. It wasn't long before Mengyao, Yushu, and Grandma Sun came out of the market, and Boss Zhu followed right behind them. With Boss Zhu's Earth-class early phase strength, it was a piece of cake for him to hide from Mengyao and the others. On the way, after passing the pharmacy, Mengyao, Yushu, and Grandma Sun entered the pharmacy. They wanted to get the medicine for Lin Yi. "This is the prescription for the last treatment. I hope Shield Bro can wake up soon." Yushu sighed. 10 days had gone by without her even noticing, and it had been a bitter time. There was perspiration. There is happiness. Although it was unforgettable, they still hoped that Lin Yi could wake up as soon as possible. After taking the medicine, Mengyao went from gritting her teeth at first to paying the bill without hesitation. The difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Mengyao couldn't help but sigh. If it weren't for Skybolt Pig, they'd be in a much more difficult situation. The three left the pharmacy. Boss Ju's eyes flashed with a smile. It seemed like Lin Yi had really gone mad like the rumors said. Otherwise, why would Ming Yao buy medicine for him? Of course, for safety's sake. Boss Ju only followed them, and didn't go to their door directly. He wasn't an idiot after all. Why should he go alone when it came to the three houses? Besides, he was only an Earth class early phase. And Lin Yi was also an Earth class early phase. If Lin Yi faked it again, then he'd be dead meat. Boss Ju knew that Lin Yi had the ability to fight higher levels. He wouldn't make a move before he had absolute confidence. It was better to leave Lin Yi to the stronger people. As long as he sent the information about Lin Yi's residence back to House Zhao, he'd be rewarded handsomely. Meng Yao, Yushu and Grandma Sun didn't notice anything at all, and went home as usual. Boss Zhu, on the other hand, chuckled and disappeared into the dusk after confirming their location. Hidden House Zhao was far away in Donghai, but for an Earth class like Boss Zhu, it only took him an hour to get back to the hidden house. Elder Zhu, Hidden House Zhao's disciple bowed and greeted Boss Zhu. Go tell Master Bing and the young head that I've brought back good news. Boss Zhu waved his hand slightly, signaling the disciple on duty to go. The disciple nodded respectfully and turned to leave. Not long after, Guangyin and Qibing came out to welcome them. Boss Zhu was only an Earth class early phase, but he was still very important to Guangyin, especially since old Zhao was the head of House Zhao. Guangyin couldn't command an Earth class, but Zhao Qibing had taken Boss Zhu under his wing. This made Guangyin value Qibing even more. Boss Zhu, I heard you've brought back good news? Guangyin laughed and walked over. Yes, young head. Boss Zhu bowed. What good news? Quick, tell me. Zhao Qibing said quickly. Young head, Master Bing. After a thorough investigation and search, I've finally found Lin Yi, that brat's hiding place. Boss Zhu said and told them what he saw. Guangyin and Zhao Qibing weren't idiots. They knew that Boss Zhu had found Lin Yi's hiding place by sheer luck. It wasn't a thorough investigation and search, but they couldn't say that out loud right now. After all, Boss Zhu had done a good job, and Guangyin and Zhao Qibing would be proud of it. After all, Boss Zhu was one of their men. Good, very good. I'll go tell Elder Bai and Father right now. You've done a great job, Elder Zhu. Guangyin said happily. I'm just doing things for the young head and Master Bing. It's not a great job. Boss Zhu said quickly. Old Zhao and Elder Bai were overjoyed when they heard the news. They quickly told Guangyin to contact the masters of the hidden House Yu and House Yu to gather at House Zhao. They'd go after Lin Yi together. This time, they couldn't let Lin Yi get away. Grandma Sun's in-laws' house. Lin Yi realized that the medicine Meng Yao gave him every day was quite effective in expelling the fire poison. With the medicine, Lin Yi's speed of expelling the poison was getting faster and faster. Now he only needed a little bit of the poison on his left leg to expel. Chapter 1840. After Ming Yao gave the medicine to Lin Yi could clearly feel the last bit of fire poison in his feet, being forced into the meridians of his right hand. At this moment, Lin Yi could clearly feel that his connection with the outside world had gotten tighter. He could wake up anytime if he wanted to. Lin Yi was just about to return to the outside world from the jade space when Ming Yao said, Shoo, I'm going to take a shower. Help Lin Yi wipe his sweat. Okay. Yushu nodded. With that, Meng Yao started taking off her clothes. This made Lin Yi, who was about to wake up, slightly shocked. He didn't dare to wake up right away. Waking up at this time was awkward for everyone, including Big Missy and himself. Although he had seen Big Missy's body when he was detoxifying Big Missy's poison, that was under the premise that he was treating her. Now it was inevitable that he would feel a little embarrassed, plus, Lin Yi was actually a little dirty in his heart. Before, because of the fire poison, Lin Yi didn't dare to look at Shu and Ming Yao taking off their clothes. Otherwise, Lin Yi's deviation would be even worse. But after so many days, these two young girls taking off their clothes and showering beside him every day, it was inevitable that Lin Yi would fantasize. Although Lenny wasn't a pervert, under such temptation, if he didn't want to peek, then he'd really be a blockhead. So, even if Lenny had strong willpower, he still secretly used his perception to look at the miss. Take it off, take it off. Lenny felt like he was about to drool. Soon, the miss upper body was only left with her bra. Lenny felt his breathing quickening. He thought to himself, Miss took it off herself for me to see. Pop-up window. I didn't peek. However, just as Missy was about to touch the button on her bra, a voice suddenly rang out. Suddenly, a loud noise came from outside the door. It was the sound of someone breaking open the courtyard door. Following that, a deep voice rang out. Junior Lenny, come out and accept your death. Mengyao jumped in fright. He quickly put on the clothes he had taken off earlier, and gave up on the idea of taking a bath. She and Shu looked at each other. Both of their expressions changed. They didn't expect this to happen. It still came. After hiding for so long, the enemy had finally found him. In actuality, Mengyao and Yushu had been worried about being discovered by their enemies ever since the three of them became famous. They'd always been hoping that they'd be lucky. There was no other way, for the two girls. It was already very difficult to find such a lucrative job. What should we do? Yushu's heart tightened. Without Ling Shan and Yutian's help, they wouldn't be able to bring Lenny out of here. I don't know. Let's wait and see. Mengyao was panicking as well. But if she acted more panicked than Yushu, then Yushu wouldn't notice. Lenny was pissed. Which bastard came to seek revenge at this time? The miss was about to take off her bra, but they came. This was the first time Lin Yi had the urge to curse. It wasn't easy for him to do something dirty, but it was interrupted. One could imagine how Lin Yi felt. Standing outside the courtyard were Yu Lu from the Hidden House Yu Sam from the Hidden House Yu, and Zhao Guang'er from the Hidden House Zhao. With 3 Earth-class masters locked onto them, they weren't worried that Mengyao and Yushu would escape. So they didn't mind shouting outside the courtyard. Junior Lin Yi, come out and accept your death, Yu Lu said coldly. You got away last time, but it won't be so easy this time. Yu San, on the other hand, stood at the side and didn't say anything. He came here because of House Yu and House Zhao. If Lin Yi was really here, then he wouldn't mind helping Lin Yi. But if Lin Yi wasn't here, then he didn't want to lose face. An Earth class shouting in front of a commoner's house and making a mistake would be the biggest joke in the world. But Yu Lu was different. He came with a mission. He had to kill Lin Yi and get the Qi gathering pill. So he couldn't wait to speak up. Zhao Guang'er, on the other hand, was even more anxious than Yu Lu. He was here to kill them, but Yu Lu beat him to it. Not far from the three, there was an SUV with Kong Mingming, Zhao Qibing, and Yu Huixing in it. The three didn't have much to do with each other, but after killing Lin Yi, they wanted to see Lin Yi's miserable state, so they came. But Yu Huixing, an Earth-class early phase, was hiding in the SUV with them, not going out to fight Lin Yi. This made Kong Mingming and Zhao Qibing look down on him. Let's go out and see. Mengyao was afraid that these people would hurt Grandma Sun, so she pulled Yushu's hand and walked to the door quickly. These people were here for them and Lin Yi, and they couldn't let Grandma Sun, who took them in, get hurt. Haha, they're here. Where's Lin Yi? Yu Lu saw Mengyao and Yushu and was overjoyed. Why are you looking for him? We don't have any grudges with you. We've never even seen you before. Why are you chasing after us? Mengyao was panicking, trying to think of a way to stall for time. But she realized that there was nothing she could do even if she tried. Of course I have a grudge with him. He's the one who destroyed the common house Yu, right? I'm representing the hidden house Yu, and I'm here to make him pay, Yu Lu said in a dignified manner. Naturally, he couldn't say that Lin Yi took the Qi gathering pill. The common house Yu asked for it. What does it have to do with you? Mengyao frowned. Besides, as far as I know, the hidden noble houses can't interfere with the common noble house's business, right? You're taking revenge for them. So where did that come from? Mengyao had followed Lin Yi and Chen Tian, and she knew quite a lot about the rules of the noble houses. Yushu was from the common house Chun too, so she knew the rules even better. Humph. Enough with the bullshit, where's Lin Yi? Yu Lu, naturally, didn't bother arguing with Meng Yao anymore, only humping coldly. Hand over Lin Yi. I won't hurt you two girls, or I won't go easy on you. Lin Yi's in the hospital, he's not here. Meng Yao said, suddenly thinking of something. He's going crazy with his training. We sent him to the hospital. Sent to the hospital? Yu Lu paused. Don't listen to her, Lin Yi's here. Guang, who'd been silent all this time, spoke up. They even bought medicine for Lin Yi earlier, so let's not waste time with them. Let's kill these two girls first, and then we'll go find Lin Yi. Target =_blank. Chapter 1841. Nothing happened. Zhao Guanger's goal was to silence them. He didn't mind killing a few more people. As long as it was someone close to Lin Yi, they might know the truth. Meng Yao and Yushu didn't know what was good for them, so he killed them as well. He wasn't from the hidden house and he didn't have those taboos. Woof woof. General Wei Wu saw the killing intent in Zhao Guanger's eyes and jumped in front of Meng Yao, ready to protect her and Shu. However, it wasn't strong enough. It was only a mystic late-phase peak. Although some offensive types of spirit beasts could fight against practitioners of higher levels, General Wei Wu was just an ancient spirit beast transformed from a normal dog. It naturally didn't have that kind of power. Mystic class spirit beast? Not bad, I want it. Yu Shursen spoke up as well. He was from the hidden house and they had a close relationship with the heavenly elixir sect. He knew the importance of ancient spirit beasts in elixir making. If the flesh and blood of an ancient spirit beast were to be melted into elixirs, there would be a lot of unexpected effects. If this ancient spirit beast was lucky enough to form an essence pill, then it would be a top-grade elixir-making elixir. Therefore, when he saw General Wei Wu, he wanted to keep this dog for himself. Of course, Yu Lu and Zhao Guanger had their own goals for coming here. They didn't care about a dog, and if Yu Shursen wanted it, then he'd give it to him. Their goals were more important. In the SUV, the others were fine, but Yu Huasheng's face froze when he saw General Wei Wu. He was too familiar with this dog. In the tomb, it was this dog that chased away the spirit beast guarding the tomb. Furthermore, Yu Huasheng was a meticulous person who was afraid of death. He remembered every single person or thing that could pose a threat to him. He wasn't like an ordinary person who might not be able to recognize the difference between a dog and a dog, or who might have seen it before. After all, most animals were the same in the eyes of humans. Just like chickens, ducks, cows, and goats, they were the same in the eyes of humans. It was just that Yu Huasheng was more careful. Of course, it was only when Yu Shursen called out Mystic Class Spirit Beast that Yu Huasheng remembered the Mystic Class dog beside the male thief in the tomb. But why was this dog here? Yu Huasheng frowned. Male thief Lin Yi. Could it be? A bold thought flashed through Yu Huasheng's mind. Lin Yi was the male thief, and the male thief was Lin Yi. Just how similar was the male thief's body to Lin Yi's? Yu Huasheng was very excited. He finally understood why Yu Bing admitted that Lin Yi had entered the tomb and had a qi-gathering pill with him when Yu Shaochen asked him. At the time, Shaochen had said that he'd ask Yu Bing in a vague manner, and perhaps because of that, Yu Bing misunderstood, thinking that Shaochen already knew the truth, and that Shaochen misunderstood even more, resulting in the current situation. At this thought, Yu Huasheng really wanted to throw his head back and laugh. Even the heavens were helping him. Lin Yi really had a qi-amassing pill. He really was a star of prophecy. To think that his random words would actually hit the nail on the head. What are you laughing at? Qibing looked at the giggling Yu Huasheng and asked, confused. No, nothing. Yu Huasheng quickly retracted his smile. He couldn't let Qibing see through him. He said awkwardly, I'm just laughing. Lin Yi, that brat, is about to die, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Qibing thought that Yu Huasheng was talking about the pill being kept a secret, and so he gave him a knowing look and nodded. Kong Ming Ming, on the other hand, didn't know what was going on, but he knew that he was just a small house Kong. Although he had the support of House Yu, he wasn't on the same level as Yu Huashing and Zhao Qibing. He could only watch silently as Lin Yi fell. Alright Lil Yu, you take care of that dog. I'll take care of these two girls first. Lil Yu, you go look for Lin Yi inside. Guang evidently wanted to kill everyone here, leaving no one alive. Yu Lu frowned slightly. He remembered what the head of the house told him to not harm the people around Lin Yi. Yu Lu didn't know why, but he wanted to remind Zhao Guanger. But when he thought of the difference in strength between him and Zhao Guanger, he didn't stop him. After all, according to the division of strength, Zhao Guanger was undoubtedly the strongest. He had the strength of an Earth-class late phase. Yu Lu and Shisan, on the other hand, were only Earth-class mid-phase. Are you looking for me? There's no need to look inside, I've come out myself. A flash of shock passed through Lin Yi's eyes. He didn't think that the three people in front of him were all Earth-class. And one of them was even a Earth-class late phase. This made Lin Yi, who had just recovered, feel his heart clench. Even if he compressed a pure chi bomb, he might not be able to deal with the three people in front of him. Besides, 3 pure chi bombs would take up a lot of time. Lin Yi had already lost to Shisan last time, so Lin Yi naturally wouldn't make the same mistake. But Lin Yi could walk out calmly and face 3 masters at his doorstep. Lin Yi naturally wasn't an idiot. In Lin Yi's heart, there was an even crazier thought. Lin Yi, you're fine? Zhao Guanger looked at Lin Yi a little shocked. Zhao Guanger had heard from Zhao Qibing that Lin Yi was an expert in deceiving people. Every time he lost his strength, he would lure the enemy to his doorstep and kill them one by one, saving him a lot of trouble. Zhao Qibing even suspected that Lin Yi was too lazy to look for the enemy himself, so he used this method to lure the enemy to his doorstep and then kill them one by one, saving him a lot of trouble. Of course, at this moment, although Zhao Guanger was suspicious, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. In his view, Lin Yi was just a master in the early phase of the Earth class. Even if he had a breakthrough, the peak of the early phase of the Earth class was the limit. No matter how powerful he was, he would only be in the middle phase of the Earth class. On his side, there were 3 Earth class masters, 1 late phase and 2 mid phase. This combination was enough to kill any cultivator below the late phase of the Earth class with ease. Of course I'm fine. Lin Yi looked at the 3 people in front of him and smiled faintly. Lin Yi's answer, on the other hand, made Zhao Guanger and the others a little surprised. What did this mean? Of course he was fine. That meant that he was waiting here, waiting for them to find trouble with him? Don't listen to his bullshit. When I found him he was unconscious. These 2 girls hid him here. If he was really fine, he would have returned to the villa long ago. Why would he still be here? Yu Lu directly exposed Lin Yi's lie. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.